Hello, everyone, and welcome to our massive 3-episode wrap-up of Play Dicely After Party. So this was a very exciting 3 episodes. We had our first ever guest, which was really fun. And yeah, we're gonna be discussing 3 episodes, which were Shanties in the Fog, the Shambling Island, and Capping the Story. Yeah, I don't think I mentioned what the show was, but this is the show where I ask my castmates of Play Dicely questions about our game. And so we're going to dive on in with that. I don't know if you guys remember, but the first episode actually started with us, like we were leaving Fallon Bridge and we went past the crossroads that Abe saw in his vision. Because I fully had forgotten that happened. So yeah, we went past the crossroads. We found like a cairn with a rusted sword of an Arturian knight, which was very suspicious to me. I definitely thought it like we should have taken it, but it also seemed like bad because it's clearly like a grave marker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a first question for Adam. Does Abe have any thoughts about like coming to this place that you saw in a vision, or are you just kind of putting everything like Malden related like out of your mind now?
I wouldn't say he's putting it out of his mind. I think it's very much like, he had that responsibility, whether he wanted it or not. And then this person, assuming that the circumstances are that grave is for the person who is calling out for the ferryman of the worthy. It's very much that sort of reinforcing that feeling of his choice to leave the service of Malden had very like wide consequences of like he kind of was just like screw you guys to an entire religion that relied exclusively on him to go to their afterlife. So definitely a heavy burden. I'm sure we won't see any other Malden stuff, so there'll be no more of that to worry about.
It's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, there'll be nothing.
They're going to take it really well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. They're very forgiving.
Yeah.
Famously, yeah.
Violence is never the answer.
No, they're very diplomatic.
Yeah.
And I apologize, Adam. I'm actually going to have you turn your volume down a little bit more.
Oh, dear.
I heard a Kim Possible ringtone, I think.
Really? That was downstairs.
Yeah,
that's why I'm going to have you turn it down even a little bit more.
Yeah.
Special ears.
We're very popular here. We get texts from everyone all of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's a text saying, hey, turn your microphone
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I texted it to Natalie because I wasn't sure you would get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Classic. Yeah. So we eventually made our way to Ganry finally, after talking about it for what feels like forever. So we entered this bustling port city, and we come across a busker singing a very special song about a local tavern. I think I decided that he was a sign spinner.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which, I don't know, it just made me laugh. And then
we just tipped him a lot for a guy who was paid to be there.
Oh, that's right. We destroyed the local economy.
Yeah,
right.
Someone gave him a platinum.
It was a lot.
Was it Rhea? Gave him a
It
platinum?
might have been Rhea gave him a platinum.
We destroyed this town.
Terrible. I think I was maybe looking in my like pocket for some silver, and then Rhea was like, "Here's a platinum." I'm like, well, never mind. But yeah, his advertising worked on us because we did end up going to said tavern. And yeah, we meet one Captain Calhoun for the first time gambling, using a dice that's definitely not loaded, and flashing a very curious teal gem. So there you go. I actually have a question for you, Jesse, that's from Anthony. And he wanted to know what inspired you to make Cap, and if you can expand a little bit about what kind of elements you wanted to bring in as you were making him.
Sure, yeah. Also, first off, hello, channel. This is my actual face.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse, for
Wild.
joining us for the after party.
I was gonna
Yeah.
go paint up, but I don't know.
No.
Give my skin a break.
No, I do.
Yeah.
I do like the mustache that you're rocking. Like, I
Oh,
think that's
thank you.
fun. I'm
It
kind of
works.
jealous.
It
Yeah.
works.
You can always grow your own, you know.
I'm trying. It's not working so well, but
But yeah, Cap. So the thing that's very fun about Cap is that he's been through several iterations in many different games. He kind of seems to be my go-to. Yeah, I'm gonna join a one-off, or I'm gonna do like a little thing. I'll do Cap again. Why not? And every time I've done him, he's been a little bit different and a little bit different, and it's a really cool way to like. Because I find when I'm playing a character in a long campaign, they get more and more specific as it goes on. You know, it kind of starts as a bit of a stereotype, and then like it gets narrower and narrower as experiences are happening to them. But with Cap, it's almost like I've been playing this same character, getting different experiences, but also those experiences can't really shape what he's going to do next, because he might show up in some other universe doing some other thing. So it's almost like he gets a bit of a reset, and I get to just try something new every time. So he originally first cropped up when a friend of mine, Drew, was doing a series of one-shots for a campaign that we are still currently playing. And the way he always does his one-offs is it's usually some sort of prequel or like adjacent, like it's not Star Wars, it's Rogue One kind of thing, where it's a bunch of characters that are going to be somehow intersected with the main plot, but not really, so they could all die, who knows. And we decided it was going to be a group of rogues, because our main characters had asked for this mafia syndicate to send barrels of black powder up to this city that we were in. So the one-off was a bunch of rogues that were going to have to be doing the smuggling of that black powder. So we loaded them all aboard Cap's ship, and we went sailing up the coast, and then we got to a point where we couldn't sail anymore, so we loaded them onto wagons, and in true D&D style, we started with like 12 barrels, and we ended up with one that survived. And the great thing, well, not, I mean, it's a terrible thing, but the interesting thing is that Cap died at the end of the adventure, because he was probably the most evil version of Cap, because he was working for like an assassin's mafia, and the leader of the group met them in the city where they were. They were in this giant room with a whole bunch of his armed guards, and he said, "All right, let's go. We need to talk." And as we all started to turn, Cap was just thinking about his retirement, and he thought, no, one last time. And he tried to reach into the black powder just to grab a pinch of it so that he could steal it and hawk it for retirement. And the leader saw and clicked his fingers, and bolt after bolt of crossbow, and Cap was no more. So that was sort of like his hubris got the better of him. So, yeah, that was the first iteration, but I only got to play him for 2 games, and I really, really liked the build of the pirate. So when Denny was talking about having guests, I was like, well, hey, a pirate sailor guy is really easy to slot in anywhere, because anytime they need to hire a boat, you can put that guy in there.
actually interesting. Like, I don't know when you guys originally started talking, but because we had this plan to go to Ganry, so it worked out really perfectly that you would come in as a ship captain, you know?
He mentioned it, geez, Denny, I don't even remember. Maybe you do months and months and months ago.
Yeah.
Like,
so
back in the fall, and you said they won't get there for months, but like, you know, we'll bring you in
Yeah.
when it shows.
Yeah, because kind of how I've been working with guests for this campaign has been like, all right, guys, I would love to have you on the show. So I've got like quite a few people lined up. I'm like, if you have a character idea that you like pitch it at me. I'll figure out where in the world it would be, and then when it comes around to go into that area, they'll probably run into you. So hopefully you might be available to join us for some sessions.
And I think what made Cap a really interesting build as a guest, when I first built him, he was just straight rogue, because we had to be all rogues for this one shot. That was kind of the rule. So he was a rogue, but I gave him the, whatever it's called, the Martial Adept feat that gives you a couple of Battlemaster moves, because I wanted the idea, like, as the captain of the ship, he would be telling people what to do and stuff like that. So then for this one, I pretty evenly split him between rogue and Battlemaster. And then in the one that we just did on Imperfect Librarians, he was a full 13 levels of Battlemaster and only 3 in Swashbuckler. So he was getting more and more fightery. But the point I was trying to make is that I built him specifically to be, yes, a commander, but also like a support fighter, where he could tell other people to take an action, or he could move other people up to the front line and just be kind of that guy directing the battlefield and never really being the star, which I think is really cool for a guest, because then the guest gets to feel cool, but they're also making the main cast shine.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think it's hard like coming in as a guest to like a pre-established campaign, because obviously it's like special. It's like, oh, another like person that's not like being voiced by Danny. Not that they're not all special when Danny does them too. But yeah, I think that's really like a cool way of playing it. I think we had a lot of fun with like playing with Cap during it as well.
100%.
Yeah,
I
you
think
were
he
really
also
nice.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say you were a nice, like, kind of breath of fresh air. I think in the party, you came with a very different vibe than what we have been playing with thus far. So it was nice to have
Less
that shaken up a
baggage.
little bit, a little less baggage. Yeah.
I mean, he had his
Yeah.
own baggage, but he just wasn't
Yeah.
really talking about it, you know?
Yeah.
And-
That's it would be really funny if you just kind of like dumped all of this like
Let me
tragedy
tell
on
you
us.
my
and be like,
story now that I've met you.
My family's dead.
Well,
But I think
you know,
it might
join
be
the
interesting
crew,
if
know.
you ever see Cap
Yeah.
again. He will trust you more, and maybe you'll learn more things about him.
Mhm. I look forward to that. Yeah, back to the order of how we went through things. I know Nell jumped in onto the gambling. Did anyone else gamble?
Gideon
At
was there
first.
too, right?
I was there, but I don't think I
I-
gambled.
You were
Yeah, I
trying
think-
to
Oh, no, I
wager,
did.
I'll clean your code if we win or something like that.
Yeah, I think I gave you
Oh,
blessed
yeah,
bullets.
you were so obsessed with wanting to clean the coat, which I thought was really interesting.
It happened once per episode, right?
Yep.
Gideon's
It's
a
a
very
nice jacket.
fashionable guy. Yeah.
Apparently,
Very nice
yeah.
jacket.
It's just like it's weird because when I bought like my peasant clothes, like you never really offered to clean those.
Well, those were
So-
oh,
Sorry?
I was trying to find another word for clothing,
What?
but my brain is failing me.
Hmm.
Those were the clothing of people who are not as well dressed, unfortunately. I wish they could
Wow.
Oh, weird. Okay,
Yikes.
so you hate my clothes. All right.
Yeah, he's never offered to clean my clothes either. I
Yeah,
understand.
what the hell? Okay, it's fine.
Well, I mean, hey,
You all need jackets. That's the problem.
you
I
need
see.
cool jackets. You need
Okay.
nice clothing, high-end clothing.
I don't know how I'm wearing like armor. I don't really know how I just like casually like wear a jacket over that. Just like a bomber. Like
Well, you have a cape, right?
I do have a cloak, yeah, because
Or
I
cloak,
can't
yeah.
exist in a fantasy universe and not have a cloak.
Absolutely.
I actually have one in real life too. It's a tangent, but I have
Dude,
like a
that's
Lord of the
awesome.
Rings, it's like a cloak that I got for my birthday last year. So it's really heavy. It's like all wool. I need to figure out what to do with that. Should just wear it on stream more.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Oh
Should.
God.
So I have that, and I also have Aragorn's dagger too. So I should just roll up like
Oh,
casually. Like this is just my look for today.
that's
That's
awesome.
what I wear.
Yeah, just around my house.
I need D&D swag. I don't have any.
There you go. You start building it up, and then eventually you have a huge collection like I do. So, yeah. So, supposedly Cap doesn't cheat during this game, and yet I remember losing like a lot of money somehow. Really odd. Ryan's just going through a bunch of different planes of existence.
Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, so then the teal gem really stood out to me during that. So I think when Cap like won and left, I was like, oh, I'm gonna just awkwardly pursue you over to the table you're sitting at and bombard you with questions. So we struck up a deal that I could buy your answers a drink per piece, which I think worked out in my favor.
Can I just say, like, I still don't know how you caught that. I would have never in a million years put that together.
It's such a breath of fresh air for me as a DM to be like, somebody has really been taking notes. I can drop clues
Mhm.
and somebody's gonna catch it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was lucky. That was from like the period of library research, which like that in particular, like those moments like really like stuck in my mind because it's like a lot of like clue solving, and so I really like get super amped about that.
Well, if I
So-
could lift the curtain a little bit to talk about the meeting that Denny and I had when he was
Yeah.
I'd
telling
love
me
to
the
hear
world
this.
building and everything. Because we were talking about, okay, well, what will be like the first moment that they see Cap? Like, they walk in the door, what are they going to see? We got to make a good first impression, right? So when we came up with the idea of him having the charlatans die, which I'm sure there's going to be a question about that later, so I won't talk about it now. I said, oh, well, then the first thing they see is me fucking cheating at dice, obviously, and winning. And Denny says, actually, let's take it one step further. I'm going to give you an object that perhaps you're betting with, and it'll be this fist-sized teal gem, because this is something that I've kind of seeded before. And I think in like a meta sense, when you see the NPC guest holding an object, clearly it's got to have some significance to it, right? So I was like, great, I'll be fondling it and throwing it on the table and holding it up and looking at it and showing it off, and someone will pick up on it, right? Lo and behold.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what it was, is like, there's this thing that I think Brennan Lee Mulligan has talked about as like a DM, like you're painting a picture, but there's going to be so much information that you have to like kind of like focus the camera on certain things that are important. And so it was very much of like a meta sense of like, okay, this gem must be something, but it didn't like ping at first. And then we were just gambling, and like, I know I was trying to like interact and stuff. And then I was like, a teal gem, like, that sounds kind of like teal sounds kind of familiar. And so then I like went into like our group lore doc and just literally was searching like teal, and then searching like eye, and like the shanty that we had discovered came up, and then it was talking about like lone eye, and I was like, oh, I need this gem right now. But I think it was really fun for me to have like our kind of like question and answer period, Jesse, because I really liked like doing like the thing where I get you like a little bit drunk and then like use your pride against you, just being like, well, you know, like, clearly,
oh, this one, look at it,
yeah, clearly that gem's kind of garbage. Who gives a shit, whatever, and then like convincing you to take us back to your boat.
That was a good moment of you kind of instantly with your intuition figured out, all right, I know how this guy ticks, and I'm gonna make him talk.
It's so fun for me to be able to do stuff like that in character, because I don't ever really feel like smooth like that in real life, like ever. And so when a moment like that like works so well, like in this kind of setting, it just feels so good. Because it's, yeah, in real life that would not have worked that way. I probably wouldn't have even like gone over to talk to anyone, just sitting at my own table, like. Anyway, yeah, so we go back and we get to see the salt plank for the first time. It's not the salty plank, right? It's just the salt plank.
Salt plank, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I had some questions about that too, about the boat and like the various like crew NPCs that we met during our journey. Were those from like one of these previous games that Cap originally started in, or did you come up with them fresh for this, or did Denny like come up with any of them?
The salt plank was from Cap's first adventure. That was the name of his boat. And I can't remember if that was myself or Drew, the DM, that had thought it up. Because I think I was just Googling. Usually when I'm naming ships or boats or anything like that, I just find like two words that sound good and mush them together. And the original idea was that he was the captain of the ship, but the ship didn't belong to him. It belonged to the mafia he worked for. So that's part of what was driving him to seek retirement, is he wanted to pay off the ship so that he could own it and just fuck off and do his own thing. So I took the name because I thought it was a great name. I don't know, maybe I'm tooting my own horn.
No, it's a great name for sure, 100%.
But the crew, I think I don't know if I've mentioned this to you guys. Maybe I have, but for the sake of the people watching, the crew is actually recycled from NPCs from a game that I run with a couple of friends, where the party met this group of undead pirates. To make a long story short, there's no sun, so everyone lives underground. It's the opposite of Denny's world, basically. So the adventuring party are the first people to ever go above ground in hundreds of years. They find this skeleton of a ship sitting on top of a mountain, so they realize they're actually walking on the floor of an ancient seabed, and they see these undead pirates still shipwrecked right where they were thousands of years ago, still thinking they're sailing, so they're all pulling the rigging. So they're all like ghosts and skeletons. And I really wanted to give each of them a really screwy personality, because the idea was they've gone insane after hundreds of years of being dead, just doing their thing here. So that's where the names and their very distinct personalities came from. And I thought, you know what, Denny, if it's a ship, it's got to have a crew. So here's all these NPCs I made. Take them if you want, change them, throw some of them out, whatever. Denny, you were just like, nah, I'll take them all.
Yeah, we'll use that.
So I went into Hero Forge and I just changed their racial type from like skeleton back into human, but everything else was just exactly the same.
I'm sure like Jenny wasn't like, no, actually, I want to do more work.
Yeah,
so
I
I'm
want
gonna.
to make 7 individual distinct NPCs.
Yeah.
And that actually was kind of the basis of the whole Sevens versus Captain rivalry, was borrowed from my game, because when the party first arrived, everyone was kind of running around doing their thing, and they thought Sevens was the captain, and then the real captain showed up, and there was like a kind of a thing that the party like witnessed a fight, and they got in between it. Anyway, yeah. So that it was like the basis for all their personality quirks.
Cool. I don't even remember all of them. I was too distracted by Sevens. So there were
You
other
don't
ones.
say.
There was a doctor that was like
Weevil.
full with leeches, and then there was like a crow's
An
nest guy.
outlook.
Yeah, I made
There's
them
2
slightly
cooks.
less. I made them a little more serious for Denny, because in my original version, Lenz was the crow's nest guy, and he was straight up blind. Like he just. I wonder why they shipwrecked.
I love that.
So I just made a bad at perception instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we go to Salt Lake, and then we finalize the deal with Cap to go out the next morning into the fog, and then we kind of like creep around your ship for a bit. I think I played dress up.
There was an interesting moment that I kept trying to seed with Denny that no one picked up on it, and I was curious if anything would come of it.
What was it?
There were a couple of times when you guys were kind of just off doing your own thing that I would just lock myself in the captain's quarters, and I described how you would hear me like rifling through stuff, like I was looking for something.
Yeah.
So there was this cool thing, because Denny showed me the ship when we were doing the character building. I was like, holy crap, dude, you built this entire map of a ship. And he said, okay, here, this area here is your, what did you call it, Denny? The storage quarters or something?
Yeah, like your treasure room.
Yeah, so it was like off of my office, I had my own little treasure room. And I said to him, oh, great, there's nothing in there. No gold, no jewels. You know what it is? It's letters from his mother. That's his treasures, man.
God.
That's what he keeps locked up. And whenever he's confused or doesn't know what he's doing, he goes and reads those.
Oh,
That's so nice. I thought it was going in a different direction of just like
Oh dear.
Like,
It's this pile of dead people.
Yeah,
no,
this is
no,
where I
like,
sleep.
like all these letters from your mother that you just like don't want to read because she's like nagging at you about something. You're like, I'll just put them in this room.
I mean,
But
some
that's
of them
really
are probably
nice,
nagging, but
Oh,
I thought it
Like
was
that.
more costumes.
every time you see Gabby's got a different hat on.
Yeah.
oh, I would love that. I actually really want to make a character now. Like, has anyone here seen Stardust?
Oh yeah, not in a long
Okay.
time.
Yeah, the pirate that Robert De Niro plays in it,
Yeah.
like Captain Shakespeare, and he has like this like wardrobe of like fancy clothes and like dresses and stuff. Like I would love to play a character like that, just because it seems really fun. So
Get a couple levels of bard in there, and you're off to the races.
yeah, like one level of like swashbuckler, and the rest is all part.
I was originally considering that for part of his build, because Sword Bard has a couple of cool sword fighting flourishes that makes
Yeah.
it a piratey theme.
That'd be really cool. Yeah. So. Oh, okay. So, myself, Abe, and Elowyn and Cap, we all go to visit Birdie, the captain's old friend, who he got the gem from, in perhaps a not so great way. Yeah. And so, what happened there? Oh, we meet his son, Draq'ull. Is that his name?
Jeez, I have to flip back to the document to actually remember what his
think I
name
Do
even
you
is
not
wrote
have
it
your
down.
DM
I
notes
don't
open
think I
for
have
this
it.
casual chat?
for this
Hard to
casual
fight.
chat.
That's for sure.
His son was name is Dalgal.
Doggone.
Okay, I did my best attempt, I think, at writing that down. So I wrote down Draq'ull, so good stuff. Yeah, clearly there's beef here between him and Cap. So Cap has to stay downstairs, but the rest of us go upstairs and we meet Birdie. And yeah, we were able to get like a bunch of information, which was really cool and super helpful. So we find out that it was his grandfather Belvedere that originally received the gem, and like his group that was referenced in the shanty as well. And yeah, the elves gifted the gem to them, and also some sheet music, which we found to be music labeled to calm something. I didn't write that part down. To calm thy
spirits.
To calm thy spirits. Yes. Yeah. So obviously that was incredibly useful because we ended up using that later. Then it's made me think, like, what if we hadn't gone to talk to Birdie? Like, would there have been another way to tame the dragon?
I think Denny pushed us to do that as well, because I didn't even realize, I think at the time, because you guys had talked about Birdie, in my mind that was like something that had happened like years ago.
Yeah,
like that was just a
20 years
throwaway
ago or
conversation,
something.
right? Like in my mind I wasn't like, oh, that person lives in this town, we should go talk to him. It was something Denny brought up. It was like, you guys should maybe look into that.
Well, and I had in the back of my mind too, because with the relationship those two characters had, I knew a bit about what was going on. So I think if you guys had never decided, I might have thought, well, we're about to go do the thing that Birdie did, so maybe I'll go talk to him and bring them with me.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that's the great thing about like some of the stats in this party too. It's like, because you've got two characters that are like 20 in intelligence, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the stat I use for like giving clues. So you're like, oh, this might be an important detail.
That's a smart way of doing things. I do appreciate that, because it's one of those things too that comes up, I feel like during puzzles in D&D games, where like, you know, if you're doing like any of the physical stats, like you as a player don't actually have to have those stats, but if you're playing like anything charisma or like intelligence based, like it in a way is kind of like on you to also have those, which is not always so helpful. So I've had to use it several times where I'm like, my character is smarter than me. Like, do they understand anything that's happening?
I relate to that. I'm bad at puzzles.
Because I feel like, I mean, for puzzles, it's just really easy to get yourself into like a certain like wrong path. And be like, it can only be solved this way, and then it's incorrect. So I appreciate that you do that, Denny.
I do too.
In terms of like the question of would there have been another way to tame it, it might have become more of a social encounter, which at this point I think we all recognize from those episodes that Drac was the only one that could communicate with it, which basically would have meant Drac and this elemental. Otherwise it was going to be a fight.
Oh my god.
Cool. Actually,
and we never got a rest again after that moment, so that would have been a problem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we would have been fine.
Also, you would have had to get into the dungeon a whole different way. Like, you would have probably parked your ship along the island or on the island and gone across the surface of it.
Yeah, that's actually something I had a question about, because it also draws into question, like, we had to really like heavily convince Cap to give the gem to the ghost dragon. And so I was curious, Jesse, like in your mind, how much of a challenge was that? Like, how much convincing did Cap actually need? And like, what was like the percentage of likelihood that we would have not succeeded in that? And then, yeah, would that have also led to the dragon like attacking us?
I think if there hadn't been, because right before I gave it up, right, I was looking back to each of you. And something that I was deliberately doing, and this was a bit metagamey, but I thought, I'm the guest. Plus, I've DM'd too. I know how narrative works. I was deliberately trying to find moments in the hour or so leading up to that bit of just like an actual genuine connection with as many party members as I could, because in my mind I thought, if Cap feels like everybody there has his back and is supporting him to do this right thing, not because they want him to, but because they want. Or rather, they don't want him to do it for their sake. They want him to do it for his sake, because he'll be better when he lets this thing go. And so I credit to you all for finding those moments with each of him. Because I thought, all right, if Cap doesn't trust these people, he's not giving it up. They're going to have to all be rolling 20s and 25s on their persuasion, whatever. And yeah, I would follow the dice if you all had chosen to do that. But in terms of just the roleplay of it, I was like, I'm not giving this up unless I really trust these folks. So credit to you all for building that relationship with Cap. I think it's a tricky thing to do, especially for someone that you don't really know personally, because I'm friends with Denny and Ryan and Dallas. I've done podcasts with you guys, but everyone else, it was kind of the first time you were meeting me. So like instantly to find that like real human connection between these characters, I was like, yeah, I'll give it up. Absolutely. This is going to be cool.
Yeah, I was really like glad that it worked out that way, because it did feel like very cinematic, especially because we didn't really know like how things were going to play out. Like I kind of saw that as being like, oh, Jesse's like story is going to wrap up pretty soon because he like is just guesting for this one episode, which definitely is how that
We're gonna
worked out.
kill him. Take that gem.
Well, that's the
Oh
thing,
my
right?
God.
The Cap that you met when you first walked in the doors of the tavern, you might have had to fight him, right? So it was the character growth that you all instilled in him through your choices and his reactions to them.
It's kind of like a litmus test. Like our group is so like obsessively like moral. You like take like, oh, he was kind of like a chaotic character, and we're like, we're so like we need to do good so bad.
I think that's why the dynamic worked as well as it did.
Yeah, I think it was nice in a way to have that kind of like Cap's energy, and I'm hoping I can use it as like kind of fuel for now, like going down the road to like ease up a little bit.
Hey,
And maybe
you
like
got
not
that-
just me, but for like a few different people in the group, like maybe we relax just a little bit every once in a while.
Well, you've got that note he wrote you, and you'll always remember to check for traps now.
Yeah. I just want to go back, Teni, you mentioned kind of like, so if we didn't have like the sheet music or if Cap didn't give up the gem, we would have been able to still find the island ultimately.
Yes, because if
Okay.
you recall, at that moment when you guys beat the Sahuagin that had invaded your ship and the dragon had appeared, there was like a beacon of teal light off in the fog,
Right.
which on that island is a lighthouse.
Oh, we could have found a lighthouse. Yeah, that was kind of what I was wondering. Like, was there a lot, like, obviously, did you have like a whole thing planned for the surface if we had gone that route instead of going under?
There would have been a lot of confrontations with Sahuagin as they were kind of setting up base and, doing dungeon delving into the Enclave. So you guys kind of you really did the most optimal path into this thing.
Oh yeah.
We speed ran it.
Yeah.
Nice. Good job, team.
Speed ran
Always
it.
a back door.
To then take 6 hours to
Yeah.
go through a dungeon. Woo. Cool. Yeah, and so then the ghost dragon, the fog dragon, leads us to the giant shambling island made of vegetation, and we very coolly go under the water and enter in. That was such a cool moment, Teni, like the way that you narrated that. Like I was literally kind of like, oh my god, this feels like Avatar or something like that. I also really was unsure of what creature we had just entered. I was like, because the only thing I know that's big in D&D like that is a dragon turtle, and I was so confused.
That is sort of what I thought too. As well.
Yeah, I was like, how's this
Me
work?
too.
What? We're in its stomach? What?
Oh, I mean, you've got your mechanical sizes. DMs, you are free to go beyond those.
Whoa.
These books are just guidelines, folks. They're
Yeah.
actual rules.
You know the
Love that.
gargantuan size category? What about colossal? What about massive? Those don't
Planetary.
exist.
Unfathomable.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
My
But how do
brain
you
has
get the
such a
token on
hard
the board?
time. Yeah. Great question. My brain has a really hard time picturing things that are large. So, yeah. Cool. So that brings us to the end of episode 1, as we kind of backtrack a little, because we went into the chamber inside the vegetation island. So before we move on to the next, I know Jesse had a question we can jump to.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to ask you, Denny, and kind of just talk to you a bit, because we, in our pre-cap meeting, were kind of building the relationship between him and the town and the other NPCs that they might encounter, and we worked on the relationship with his pal, Old Birdie, and we were working on this whole idea of, it's this frenemies thing, they're old drinking partners, and they used to josh each other and rib on each other, and maybe one day Cap took it a little too far when he went off with that gem, and it's probably been a couple years. Birdie maybe has never forgiven him for it. The relationship maybe's never repaired. But what I found really interesting, how it played out in the episode, is that they never actually got to talk. Even though Cap was there, he was downstairs. So all of the work that you and I did to figure out their relationship, we now had to continue building that relationship without actually being able to do it face to face in the moment. So he was talking to people that knew Cap, and Cap was kind of aware that they were up there. And I found that really cool, so I was curious to know your thoughts on that moment of them in the room with him.
Well, I also thought that was a very interesting situation, because I was like, I am intentionally splitting the party because of some backstory reasons we'd come up with. And his son, Draq'ull, is so fiercely protective of his father. I was like, there is no way that this gentleman is going to allow Cap to go upstairs and talk to that man after he did what he did to him. But the rest of you guys won him over because of Abe's brilliant, like, excuse me, Cap, we're talking. Just like, clearly we're not allied with him, like showing that we are actually interested in what your father has to say, that he let them all go upstairs, but Cap had to stay downstairs.
So, like, what was it like playing Bertram up in the room and having them ask questions about his relationship with Cap and how he got the gem and all of that stuff? Like, just having to do, I guess, all that work that you and I did to build a relationship, and then not be able to play off me in any way, like having to do all the work.
Well, and a bit of that was this guy they were going to speak with he's a historian, and this is probably stuff that you'd never bothered to ask him. Like,
no, I knew the general fable of like, oh yeah, he went out and sailed out there and talked to some fish people. Great, cool story, great.
Yeah, but the fact that he had people coming up there to learn what he had to learn while he was on his deathbed is a big deal. And he even said in that conversation, like, my son has no interest in, like, the history of the town. So, like, the fact that these three characters came into this room and was like, hey, can you tell us things? He's like, I have no place in this world if I do not pass this information on. So it was...
Honestly, man, that made me really sad. Like, being in that scene, I'm like, this fucking sucks. I hate this.
Well, I find it really interesting that you say the son had no interest in the history of the town, when the son was also so fixated on the schism between Cap and Birdie, not realizing that the context behind it is tied to the history of the town. I'd be curious to know, you know, like, if the camera ever snapped back to Gannery, and maybe Cap, after the adventures and the party softening his heart a bit, if he ever knocked on Birdie's door one more time to actually say, no, I want to talk to him for real this time. I
think you'd have a bit of a fight to get into the house, but depending on your tactics, you might be able to prove your way into that room.
And I'm thinking he would be more willing to actually play a softer tactic instead of just, you know, being a jerk to the point of Abe having to shut him up.
Well, I mean, and you know what? I'll bring this up at the end of the third episode. Hopefully I remember. Because you did things that might change both of their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I just broke my own heart imagining that, like, Cap, like, goes up to knock, and then, like, Son answers, and he's, like, dressed in black. You're like,
oh, Christy, don't do that to me.
Him.
You just missed him.
Look, Denny,
he's
as
going
a fan
to the funeral of
that
our
has
aunt.
to be what happens.
That is so tragically beautiful.
Yeah, I was like trying to imagine, like, if this was like a written story. I feel like that is like a feat that someone would choose to take.
That's canon now.
Brutal. Well, I hurt my own feelings, so that's good. Before I move on to episode 2, did anyone else have any questions for the first episode of this arc?
I actually,
Fantastic.
Sorry. Who did I just walk over there?
Me, but it's fine. I was really about to say, like,
The
let's
host,
cut.
it's
I was like,
job.
let's cut again so I can go get my tea.
No, just a really quick question, kind of for everyone, because I watched a couple episodes, and Denny got me up to speed on generally the goals of the party, but I was still a bit muddy on your specific exact reason for going out into the fog. Like, I knew you wanted to get there because you were investigating stuff, but Denny left it, I think, a bit muddy on purpose because he wasn't sure how much explanation would be happening in-game. So I'm curious if you'd be willing to lift the curtain a bit and just give me a short version as to why the hell you cared about that Druid Enclave.
Yeah,
I think you saw it in episode 25.
Yeah, like everything that was discussed after we beat the sludge, and like we woke up the Archdruid and like everything she talked about. That was kind of the main thing. It's basically like somehow we've been tasked with waking up these various Druid enclaves that were essentially like supposed to have been woken up by Rhea's mother, I believe. But like they can't find her anymore. Like, so we have no idea like what happened to her, and like where she is. And so yeah, all of them are still like sleeping or something else has happened to them. And there's like this event that happens every few hundred years or something that could like upset the balance of the world, and like they're supposed to be the ones that like are there to like rebalance it essentially. So we're trying to like get to them before things fuck up, which is kind of what she was talking about, like the void and all of that.
I think maybe I did not connect those two things. I didn't connect the waking up with the event. I think because it was happening in game towards the end.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I was also confused when we first arrived at Ganry. Like, I don't think we necessarily knew that going in the fog would equal, or at least I didn't, like, that it would equal the Druid Enclave. Like, I think we were just looking for answers originally.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think like we originally, did we like necessarily want to go in the fog? I think maybe seeing the teal eye was like, no, I definitely want to go in the fog.
Well, we knew there was a Druid Enclave in the Smoky Gulf, right? So I think originally that's why we were going to Ganry, was because we were like, that's close to the Smoky Gulf. Maybe anyone there knows anything. I think that was the original reason we went there, was just to learn anything. But then when we got there, it was like, we got a teal gem, we got some fog, people get lost in the fog, and we were like, okay, I guess that's where we're going then.
We just kind of went for it, which is crazy because honestly, our first conversation about this back in Balam Bridge, we originally made the plan, let's go to Ganry, see if they have any answers for us, then go to Brule Bar, and then go on in like into the Smoky Gulf, because we were like, we had found that shanty and we were like, oh, if there's a ghost dragon, we can't fuck with it because it'll kill us for sure.
Yes.
So we originally like didn't have the plan to go into the fog, but then we like arrived in Ganry and we're like, yeah, we're going into the fog. And so even like, I think like you might have asked Cap, like asked, and in my mind I was like, I'm not entirely clear when it became like we're for sure going into the fog.
Probably because I asked you in the moment. And, well, and it's funny you say that, because I'm pretty sure, Denny, if I'm remembering correctly, you kind of gave me the option of where do you think they'd meet you? Because we were thinking we could kind of engineer, because they've got a couple of different goalposts along the coast. It could kind of be in any of these spots, and I thought, ancient old fishing town, that sounds fun.
I think it's one of those story things that kind of got away from us, but it worked out. So good. Did anyone else have the feeling that like, oh, going the fog is going to equal Druid Enclave?
Honestly, yeah.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
I didn't know if it was going to be Druid Enclave, but I thought it was going to be something related to it, something that would give us a lot more answers, or you know what I mean? Like, it was definitely related to it, but I didn't know it was actually the remainder of it.
Right, and we kept hearing about those weird sea elves as well, right?
Yes.
Which felt ancient and interesting.
Yeah, because I misheard, I think. I'm pretty sure I misheard what was going on with that, because I thought it was like, okay, we were going to go to this, like, area in the middle of the fog, and then we were going to go through it to the opposite side, because I was, like, looking at the map. I don't think much of that is being explored on the opposite end of the Smoking Gulf. So I was like, maybe we were going to end up over there, and then that's where the Enclave would be somewhere near the opposite side of the Gulf, but...
I think I had a similar thought process to you, because there's like that area across that's like a tower, like or something. I'm trying to bring up the map so I can like look at it. And I think that was like, oh, that's eventually where we'll need to go, but we'll go like here first and maybe get some answers, and then that will lead us like there. But I just had a funny realization of just being like, wow, you put together that teal gem thing really fast. And I was like, do you think I connected weird sea elves to Druid Enclave? Because I did not. They were very distinctly separate in my mind. So when you were like, yeah, there were sea elves, I'm like, oh, I think probably because sea elves originally were mentioned at the same time as like ghost dragon with one eye. And obviously that was what was in my mind, was like, a dragon? What? So.
Also, love that Tritons are sea elves. That's a smart way to
That was
mask
very cool. Yeah, that was a really cool realization. all
We've
together.
met some really kind of cool elves at this point now, right? Because we met whatever the hell Valen was.
Yeah, the
It's
Allagast.
true. We've met all sort of weird elves.
Yeah, some funky, fresh elves.
You know, I love that about elves. There's like elves of every kind, everywhere.
You can homebrew a kind of elf if you'd like. Just go
Ooh.
nuts.
I did.
Oh my
Look,
god, I'm
I'm
thinking
waiting for
about.
Gideon's
I've done it
beer
too.
elves.
Beer elves?
Beer elves, I'm down. Let's go. Let's
They're
figure
just
it out.
dwarves.
I'm thinking about like how, because we were using ancestry and culture to make our characters, and like me being like half elf, half Goliath. I'm like, what if I married a sea elf, and then we had like quarter Goliath and like sea elf children? That'd be a really cool vibe.
The rulers of mountain and sea.
So cool.
Sounds badass.
That sounds pretty fucking neat in my opinion.
Maybe one day. So yeah, the next episode picks up with us in this kind of chamber, like docking area. The fog dragon leaves us on our own, telling us to sing the song again if we need to leave. And then all of us just get really amped to start exploring this dungeon.
Except for Abe.
And yeah, except for Abe, who kind of seemed like pretty nonchalant about the whole thing. But the rest of us were like, this is it, gang. This is
I
where
have
we
to
need
say,
to go. We have information to find out.
Abe might be the most chill character of any party I've been in, despite being a fucking fighter who can rip your head off. He's just like, yep.
Yeah.
You missed all the drama moments.
I'm not sure I'd
I,
define him as chill.
That is one of the episodes that I watched beforehand, so I got a bit of the context.
I think current Abe could probably bisect a man.
Oh, for sure.
Certainly.
The Abe's actually
know.
stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't actually know
He's
for
gotten
sure.
stronger than he was before.
I feel like it's less in his nature now. Hopefully.
Who knows? You know,
Because
actually,
we don't-
Now he'll
we
do
don't
it because
know.
he wants to.
I don't like to put, chains around it. I just,
Yeah.
Live in the moment.
I don't like to put walls up.
Right.
Also, something I wanted to add as well, kind of before we go too far away from it. The song or the fog dragon. Like, you guys, some of you were kind of worried, like, are we procking it too early, or oops, we don't want to accidentally sing this thing. The only one who was actually only able to make this thing work was Gideon, because he had an instrument proficiency.
Nice.
Boy plays the flute.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I mean,
good for Gideon.
even Drac technically could have, but his proficiency is in the drum, so it wasn't a melody-based proficiency. So I was like, I had that in mind. I was like, Gideon's got to do this.
I think we had that in our mind too. We gave that music to Gideon pretty quick.
Yeah. Every session, I get a little irritated with myself that I took freaking like dragon chess or whatever the hell as like one of my proficiencies, and I'm like, why the fuck did I do that? Like, when the hell is that ever gonna come up? So,
A tavern.
That was
Any
almost
tavern.
yeah. That was actually almost my gaming set that I picked, but I think I went with the dice instead, or
Yeah.
maybe cards.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, any tavern. Challenge someone.
Maybe you should ask other members of the party if they've got
I
proficiency.
don't really.
That too.
I just
I'll
think
play
I picked
against
it
you.
as it was like
Without the
funny. I
proficiency.
truly don't think I didn't realize it had any sort of in-game mechanic at all. So,
Also, Christy, I'm sure you'll get to it eventually, but Nell has a one-up when it comes to dice games now, so
yeah.
I expect you to win a lot of loot with that, and to get a lot of information out of people without them knowing.
Yeah, there's gonna have to be like an
Mhm.
arc that's like Nell's like learning how to be deceptive arc. I think.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure how that's gonna go, but we'll see.
Right,
Yeah.
to
Wait,
jump
Denny, how
in-
did you feel when the entire party failed our wisdom checks?
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
a
great
question.
Were you
My
so excited for
God,
us?
I was like, this is insane. Firstly, because of what this is going to do. Secondly, the fact that Abe beat that DC with his 18. Like, I knew this thing was going to be high and deal a lot. I did not expect Abe would be the one to succeed, and I didn't expect everyone else to fail. And then you guys were like, you got off the boat onto the shore and were like, hey, maybe we should take a short rest. I was like, are they going to immediately discover this mechanic? And then they're like, no, let's press on. I'm like, they could have saved so many resources.
I'm curious.
That would have
from
been good
one-
to know at that moment. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious from one DM to the other. if there was a specific, perhaps nefarious, intention with that mechanic of trying to get us through the dungeon in one episode.
No, that wasn't involved at all. It was purely based on the monster that I had at the end of it.
Loved that, but
Good answer.
cool ass monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have some monster questions, but we've
I have
got
a
a whole
question.
ass dungeon
Oh.
first.
And
Ryan, what's up?
this is for Denny actually. Just because I remember you told me to write it down, and feel free to not share it because maybe I don't know this yet. But I remember in that episode, the first episode, when we were near that grave site, there was the statue of Equin Bach there that I left some coins at. And then you told me to write down that I had done so. So you didn't tell me to leave the coins. I left the coins there. And then you told me to write it down that I left the coins there because there's some form of inspiration or some shit. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
But what's that about?
I'm glad you brought that up. I think that because I think I also asked you if you had inspiration at the moment. And I think you said you did.
This
This
was
was-
probably.
So I can share this with you now because I completely forgot about that. So it's better that you know now so you can activate this as well. The next time you spend inspiration, just get it right back because that moment is going to get you inspiration retroactively.
Oh, fuck, that's so neat. Oh, yeah, no, the reason I had inspiration is because I haven't been making cook checks because we just haven't had the time.
Yeah, what happened next? Oh, so we kind of started exploring that initial chamber at first. Found like Elowyn and I found like another ship that had been shipwrecked there. But before we could explore all the way around, we got attacked by more of the Sahuagin, which was really fun. Anthony reminded me of something that I completely had forgotten about. In that hallway where they initially attacked, there was like a purple light or something.
Was there?
No, that was
no, I
late. That was
remember
deeper
There was
in.
one in a later.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Well, then he led me astray. So where was the light? So I know when to ask this
so-
question.
So like you guys had the chamber that the ship came in. You had the hallway, that
Yeah.
T intersection where that fight happened. Then the worship chamber with the statue, and then there was another hallway to the right, and then there was a hallway to the north with the gas spore thing, and it was that hallway
Right.
to the right where the purple glow was.
Okay, so what was that then?
It was mushrooms, phosphorescent fungi.
Oh, fun. So nothing would have attacked us over there?
No,
Oh.
I mean things
sure
did
they-
attack you on the way over there, but Abe took care of it.
I'm so.
Was
we
there,
just
like-
shoved Abe first to every
Was
hallway.
there anything interesting in the hallway? Or did we
We
Yeah.
walked down it.
Oh, did we did? Okay.
Yeah.
It was just a
Oh.
passageway.
Okay, I'm having a vague memory of this. There was a lot of dungeons. I forgot.
There were a lot of
Thinking about it.
pathways.
Yeah,
I think
Right
the real
on.
mushrooms were the friends we made along the way.
Yeah.
they're all
for sure.
fungi.
Especially the big thing that tried to give me some strange disease.
Yeah.
That was the best mushroom.
Best mushroom.
Raising. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we fought the
Meatball.
Sahuagin into that main chamber. And then yeah, we got attacked by like a floating eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then like some sort of ooze thing that, to be honest, I feel like at that moment during, like I had fully kind of like zoned out. So all of a sudden, because I was kind of just like looking around the room and like looking where to go next and stuff. And all of a sudden they're like, no, like, can you heal Gideon? And I was like, what happened? I like had no clue. So can
Gideon's
you,
just dying.
yeah,
BRB.
Denny, can you walk me through what those two
Disease.
things were? Because I like did not interact with them at all and had no idea what was happening.
Yeah.
that whole
So I
time.
mean,
So-
after you guys cleared that worship chamber of the Sahuagin, there was that gas spore fungus, and then there was a bunch of. I mean, those of you with good intelligence would know this, like violet fungi, which are just these like torpedo-shaped mushrooms that like lash out with tendrils, and just like drain life from things. Whereas the big explosion balloon just infects everything with spores.
Oh, good. What did those spores do, by the way?
Oh boy.
Bad stuff.
Can you
no.
lift the curtain on that? Because I
We
rolled
didn't have
max
Nell.
roll. If we
What?
didn't have Nell, what would have happened to my?
Because you
poor-
cured a
Oh.
disease in him, right? But I
Right.
don't know if any of the rest of us could have done that.
Well, I also had the ointment can also do that as
Okay.
well. So, I mean, that technically was on my person as well, but that was an option.
Plus, we had a doctor on the ship, everyone. Like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
just
right.
like 10
That
leeches
kind
and you would have been
a
good.
couple of leeches, maybe saw off the gangrenous limb, and you're good.
Yeah,
Yes.
after I was missing 2 limbs and possibly 3 internal organs, I would have the disease cured.
So
Sell for a lot.
So, what was happening after Gideon got infected by that was I had asked you what your Constitution score was, and then I got you to roll a d12.
And I rolled a
And
12.
You rolled a 12, which was honestly the best for you.
Okay. Oh,
Because
Okay.
what would have then transpired was that is how many hours you had to get rid of the disease.
oh.
In half that time remaining, you would become poisoned for the duration. Should that full time remaining go by, you would be dead.
Cute.
See, what I thought you were going to do
Oh.
was you were going to just cut my Constitution
By
score
that,
by
yeah.
12.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Oh.
So I was scared. And to be fair, what you just said is very scary as well.
A bad time for me to have zoned out.
It's okay. We gotcha.
Yeah, you were like, hey, come
No.
over here and do something. I'm like, what? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Come
Okay.
here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's because during that moment we weren't in initiative anymore. So, like, I guess I didn't like feel like any impetus like to try and help. I don't know. My brain was just like, okay, see ya.
Oh gosh. And it was
it
so
worked
funny
out.
too that Ryan's reaction was, I'm gonna kill this thing. Meanwhile, it's like, oh yeah, it'll explode if you hit it. And try and infect everybody within a 10-foot radius.
And that did end up happening. It did
It did
or-
explode, but nobody
but no
else got
one was-
infected.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good.
And I feel like this is a game all about poking things to see what they do, right?
Gotta try.
I learned about like some like shithead player technique apparently, where like you get like a 10-foot long like wooden stick and you just like poke everything in a
That's-
dungeon in front of
10
you.
That
foot
is-
pole, baby.
That is the history of D&D right there.
I never knew about that until recently. I was like, that's
Yeah.
really funny.
I did a classic dungeon crawl a few weeks ago where I had 2 10-foot poles and a
Ooh,
crowbar,
wow.
and I was
Luxury.
like, I can conquer the fucking world.
Yep.
That's so fun. I think I might have actually like during this thing been thinking about like the history of stuff because there was that statue that was in there, like the altar.
That makes sense.
And I was probably just being like, what's this about? And there's all this like other stuff stop happening so I can like look at this statue. But yeah, that was the statue of Ro, which was the druid deity of water and death, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then I feel bad, Denny, because I put you on the spot to be like, oh, there's 4 total. What are they all about?
Tell me everything right now.
Well,
So I hope I didn't like fuck you by being like, tell me the lore right now that you don't have written.
it was fine. It was like rough stuff I had in mind, but I hadn't like named them all. So it was like, all right, here we go.
Yeah, I felt bad, but it was like just like so obviously I'm like, well, of course I'm gonna want to know the other ones. Like, but yeah, so there on that statue, that was one that had the wand of magic detection.
Yep.
So I actually have a question for you, Johnny, which was, were you finding it kind of frustrating as a DM that we were all playing like so moral that we were like, we can't touch anything in the Druid Enclave dungeon and like refusing to take anything?
Well, I mean, this is a funny conversation to have because for the people out there, after this session, I had a conversation with a lot of you. I was like, as a DM, it is my job not only to be lead storyteller, creator of the worlds, manner of the NPCs and whatnot, but also I have to be a game designer, especially when it comes to dungeons. So I'm not going to put something in a dungeon for you to take and be like, you got to give it back after. There will be reasons, either if it is a place that is habitated, it is treasure for you now, it has been gifted, or there might be some persuasion that might need to happen, but you'll probably end up with it. Or
Honestly,
the place
Jenny,
has been
that's-
abandoned.
That's way nicer than I would have been to my players. I would have just been like, can you please fuck with my shit?
I have never
Yeah.
received such a message from a DM before.
Neither have
Oh
I.
no.
It's really hard.
Guys,
I feel like
please use my stuff. You're
I
gonna
just, like,
die.
I feel like I'm playing so against like the normal type that I play, which is like interact with everything and like fuck with all the shit and stuff, but like trying to like play so opposite with Nell, just being like, I don't know.
I mean, if I could give an actual non-joking observation about that, as both the guest kind of looking in from the outside and also, again, a fellow DM, it was really cool to see the cogs in Denny's brain turning like, okay, well, if they don't take that, that's gonna make other stuff a lot harder. But it was never because, from my observation, it was never because, oh, I'm afraid to, or that's probably not what Denny wants. It was always character committed.
Yeah.
It's like, no, my character does not feel like it is right to take this without knowing exactly what I'm doing here. And I think that's why it was such a joy to watch, because at no point did I think it was a meta decision. It was always driven by character intention.
It's like the meta me would be like, pick everything up.
Well, I mean, and there's that conversation was to be like, it's okay to think meta sometimes. It's all right. I respect you guys as role players. You guys do fantastic character work. But pick up the damn wand.
Take the stupid wand.
I know, it was really funny. Like, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but when you send that message, you then like message me privately to be like, that amulet is for you. like attune to that amulet next time. And I was like, okay.
So funny.
I was really excited because I was like, in my mind, I was like, well, if we find some items, they must be for other people. They won't be for me. So I was like fully just being like, well, someone got a cool amulet. And then for you to message me, I'm like, yay.
Because I pushed that on you and I didn't know it was for you. But
I know that was so brilliant.
It was really interesting because like I kept waiting, like, because I knew that I was supposed to take it. And so I didn't want to be like, oh, well, I'll take it. So I was waiting for like Denny to say something because he had said like, oh, I'll make it really clear it's for you. But then like Dallas is pushing it. So I was like, oh, could he like tell Dallas? Is that how he's doing this?
Nope.
No.
You said that feels like this will give someone health. I'm like, desperately Nell needs that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep on this track because I don't really feel like we need to bring it up later. But when you like in that message described what it looked like I thought it might have been like related to Fyra in some way, and so I was really like, or did you tell me that it was, or did I just make that up?
Nah, you made that up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because it was like golden and there was like a sun on it or something, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So when you were like, oh, it makes you feel safe, I was really like, oh, this is so unique. Like, what would this, like, how would this be connected to like my god? And it's not, but it was still very interesting.
I mean, if it is related to the item that I think it is in the DMG, it's a pretty damn cool item.
Well, it's an amulet of health, right?
Yeah, that is what it was. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
freaking insane. I'm so strong now. Like, not strong, but my gut health is off the charts.
There's some fun I get to have with magic items when creatures have them as well. Like you guys found that thing inside of an ooze, and I described that ooze as being a bit more lethargic, being a bit healthy looking, like it was a bit thicker, and I actually gave it the amount of HP that would be attuned to that item. Like that one specifically was attuned to the necklace.
That's another tip for DMs. If you want to give your parties a cool item, give them to a thing they're fighting, because then they get to see what the item does before they take it.
Unless you're us and we just don't understand.
Unless you're like me and you're kind of like glazed over and you're like, yeah, there was an ooze. I guess I actually couldn't remember where the amulet came from.
To be fair, it was a 6-hour session.
Yeah. And I have no tips for Denny because he doesn't need my tips. He knows what he's doing.
Oh. To pay respect to the giant goopy sludge boy, we should leave all of the items that they were using on the corpse out of respect.
Take nothing with us.
At the end of the day, in the last moments, they were not the bad person. They were someone questioning their life's choices. So therefore, they're redeemed.
Take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints.
Who's redeemed? The ooze?
The big sludge boy.
Okay, interesting.
Can you redeem an ooze? I don't know if I agree with you there, Ryan.
Well, we're leaving the items. So.
Cap already stole it.
I am not taking that amulet off. Are you fucking kidding?
Yeah, no, you gotta give it back. It belongs to her.
No.
Now, don't you do it. That's yours now.
It is. Fuck all y'all. Actually, just continue to toot Denny's horn. Really sorry that I made this gesture as I did that. I was honking a horn in my hand.
Let's not talk about the size of the horn.
Oh my god.
So because I forced you, we learned a bit about the various druid gods, and it was mentioned that Rogue created the moon, or so is believed by the druids. And I think it was Dallas in character that had mentioned like, oh, that's really interesting because of the story that you had learned at the library about Rowanay. So I obviously like I don't need this spoils yet because I feel like it might come up more, but it just like brought to mind a really like cool thing, like the potential of like there being like historical events that are like referenced in various like religious groups and like other like branches of history and stuff, because it's like kind of like there's like real world elements of that too. Or the example I'm thinking of like in Christianity there's like the whole like the Noah's Ark like big flood thing, but there's actually like historical record and other religious texts of a big flood as well. So it's cool to see like events like in that context, I suppose.
Right, kind of be reinforced through different perspectives.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's where you're going with like all of like the druid gods, because we'll get there when we get there, but this little nugget of it so far I thought was really interesting. So I just like that kind of like weaving of history and lore. This comment got away from me.
Feels important. Feels like that's going to be important.
Yeah, it feels like maybe
I don't
it
know
could be
how.
interesting. Yeah.
But it feels important.
Yeah. I think this is another reason why I got distracted about what we were trying to do in Smoky Gulf, because wasn't that story like that you found, Dallas, at the library? It was on a lake or something, wasn't it?
It was on water, but I don't think it was a named body of water.
Okay. So I think I fully was just like, oh, that's also Smoky Gulf. So I was just getting really distracted by like all of the information we had learned and just wasn't piecing certain stuff together. So that's great. Anywho, so from there we moved on to the Druid Graveyard, which it was pillars of vegetation, right? With skeletons inside?
Yeah.
Okay. Did we ever find out in game if like we could tell that was how it was meant to be, or was that part of like the corruption of the
No, that was I believe Azariah explained it. This is just the way that burial works in that place.
Okay.
To add some fun D&D lore, there is a monster called a Shambling Mound. And what that monster does is it absorbs things and eats them. And this island is essentially an island version of that.
Explains all the electricity that was zooming around.
Except it is kind of under control and it just has its own kind of cycle.
Very interesting. Oh, and I'm like so curious about like what did this enclave look like when the druids were like actively in it, you know?
Less dead.
Like, because is the island like its own creature, or was it kind of like being influenced by the magic of the druids?
Maybe once you're high enough level and someone can cast Dream or another weird divination spell, you can have a vision.
We'll go back.
Legend lore.
I don't even know what Dream is. I did not know that was a spell. So that's good. Yeah, that's more of just like me thinking out loud, because we're obviously not going to know that, but yeah. Cool. And then we met, I keep saying it like Jelly because that's how I'm imagining it's supposed to be said, but it's not, right? It's like
No.
Jelly or something.
Jale. Yeah.
Jale. Right on. Yeah. I wrote in my notes like Jelleh. So I just kept calling it Jelly because, you know. But yeah, I was also confused about this in retrospect as well, because like between episodes 2 and 3, we came back with being like, oh, that fucker Jale, like they were actually ooze or something, but like weren't they helpful to us for most of it? Like they didn't attack us or anything, right?
No, truly, that whole thing confuses me. I think I was filming the recap yesterday and I went on a whole tangent that won't make the final cut because I just sat there for a while being like, what? What's with that thing?
Because like
Wait a minute.
it led us through to the area with the lightning trap, and then was like, oh, there's probably a key somewhere, and so then we went back with them to explore the other rooms, and then eventually I don't even remember where, but we somewhere found that trident, and then they just like randomly disappeared into ooze, and we were like, oh, okay.
I mean, mechanically they felt pretty neutral in that they will neither help nor hinder us.
Yeah, but it's like they were kind of helping us, and so I was talking about this with Anthony today, be like, why did they help? And he was like, oh, maybe it was like the ooze wanted to try and get more creatures into the chamber to like possess. Is that kind of what it was?
People into
That's pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's a DM too, so that's probably why he
Ladies and
figured it out.
gentlemen, Anthony the DM.
Yeah, because like me, I was just like, but it was nice to us. I'm confused. So
Right.
interesting.
Flies with honey in that old adage.
Yeah.
But why did it? Yeah. Well, whatever. Yeah.
Best way to trick your players is to just be nice to them.
I did feel like
That's
it
true.
left. Like when did it leave?
That's what I
Like,
was gonna say. I don't know like why it oozed away.
Yeah.
It took us to that super fucking weird room,
Yeah, the
And
and
it
it
library
take
just
us-
room.
turned to ooze.
it take us
I
to the
also don't
library?
get that room.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
Well-
okay. Actually, I'm gonna jump down because I have a section that's like theories that came from this whole thing.
Because I have a theory about the room in the ooze.
Right.
Okay.
I want to hear
So-
them.
So it seemed like after the fact that like that library room did exist, but the way we originally saw it was like some sort of manifestation of, I guess, the void or the ooze or whatever it was, right?
I think so.
So my, I think I'm like getting like certain things crossed there, but it seemed like when we went in, the main thing that was like the center of attention was that book that had like information about the stranger in shadow, right? And so I don't actually remember now because we learned a lot of different stuff if the stranger is inherently connected to the void or not. Like we found out it's like a fiend or something, right? But like that's different, right?
Yeah, we learned. I can't remember the word that Denny used for it, but it was really fucking cool, and I don't remember seeing it in any of the D&D books. I'm pretty sure he came up with it on his own. So Denny, give yourself a pat on the back, okay? So basically, yeah, a creator among devils, something like that.
Yeah, the term you're thinking of is foul emperexy.
That
was-
that's a word.
That was something that Dallas had actually discovered in her research about fiends.
Oh my
okay.
god, I'm gonna just go back and reread.
So for my own
No.
clarification, is there like a connection between it and the void stuff, or are those two different things as far as we're concerned right now?
Those are two separate things.
Okay, so that kind of puts a weird thing on my theory, but like there might still be some sort of like connection there that we haven't discovered yet, because I feel like maybe we were brought to that room specifically to try and like the stranger like wants that information to be found in a way, right? Because like they're trying to escape, right? Like they want you to have the name and like release them essentially. So I'm wondering if it's kind of like, oh, like I can manipulate this like void or this ooze somehow and like direct you there. Like that's my theory, but I don't actually know if those two things are connected or if they're two separate things yet. So
I mean, yeah, my theory was, and Denny, remind me if I'm remembering this correctly, but it melted away into ooze kind of at the threshold of the door, right?
Yeah.
So my theory was maybe a little more basic, was just he had kind of implied that this room was sort of separate in a way from the rest of the dungeon, and I just thought, well, the ooze can't pass into it because it's not part of its territory. And when it tried, it melted. Did I get it right?
You remembered correctly. I won't reveal anything about your observations.
That's the right answer, Denny.
oh, I'm so confused by what that means then. But like all of not all of them, but the majority of the books that I took from that room turned to ooze.
Yep.
Maybe we went to another plane without realizing it, and
I have a-
objects.
Well,
couldn't
'cause, I
pass
mean-
through.
I think we'd
thought-
explored that for a while.
But there's precedence in that because like we'll get to this later, but like Abe found that portal to like what we think was the elemental plane of water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rhea was able to stick their head basically like into a vision of the Rinzar peaks. So now I'm really confused. But when we went back to, or we didn't go back, when Elowyn went back to that library after the fact, it didn't have that same feeling, right, of being somewhere else.
Yeah, it felt much
Yeah.
more natural. Like the furniture was more belonging to druids and that kind of thing. Like no fireplace.
I just had a thought. Let me know what you think.
Hit me.
Okay. So, sorry, I say this all the time.
Tinfoil hat.
Put it on, baby. All right, so,
There he is. Let's go.
I remember that Denny said that Brule Bar by night was present in the library. So,
Was it?
It was. So for
Oh.
me, what I think was that this room was some kind of like passageway into the like subconscious memories of those who stand within it. So now what I'm thinking is, because there's a book on a big McFucking devil that is just vibing in the wherever the fuck it's vibing, I think maybe Miss Druid has some explaining to do.
And I believe, if I'm remembering my Mordenkainen's properly, there's one of the hells or one of the layers of the abyss that's just like an endless fucking eldritch library.
Well,
maybe we walked into there by mistake.
Oh my god, I would love to get
There's-
sent to that purgatory.
There's a bit of lore differences between this homebrew and some of the more canon lore of D&D.
Could be an entirely new creation that we've just all gotten pieces of.
Yeah, but again, speaking of pieces, the name of whatever creature is split up into 3 pieces, right?
Four pieces, right?
4 pieces.
Four.
Pieces.
Okay.
4 pieces. Yeah, it's just in the book, like the others were blotted out. So part of me is like, if I were to run a thing that had something like this in it, that's how I would describe a name in 4 parts, with only one being known by the person. Sort of how the arrangement that we discussed, where we'd have 3 people, or however many people know one part of the name, and then be able to combine them at some point. So it's like maybe that person genuinely only, like they do only know that one part of the name, but like that book is just a part of their memories. I don't know.
That's actually an interesting thing, because I didn't remember this part, but the fragment of the name that you got, Dallas, you also saw in the book before, which I had forgotten about completely. So that was interesting to me, because it was like this whole thing to try and convince
Shusumi.
Wow, definitely did not have that written down correctly. Shusumi, you had to really convince her to give you this, but you already had it, which is confusing. So I don't know if that was just kind of Denny being kind of well, hopefully you have this information, it's there twice just in case, but also I don't know, there's something funky happening with this thing, and I don't know enough yet, but it's...
I made this mistake in my last campaign. Just know that if there's mistakes I make, they're often intentional.
What does that mean?
That is not helpful.
But if you know that there is a game afoot, then at least you know that you're playing the game. Whereas I had seeded through this entire last campaign, one NPC called another NPC by a wrong name, which they should have known that entire campaign, only to later reveal that they were not the person that everyone thought they were.
Oh my god, the level of 40 chess that you're playing with us right now, I can't. it's good
always
though,
happening.
Now that Adam took away the Malden of it all, I needed something new to to write a bunch of lore documents about. So right now this whole thing, this weird connection that's going on here, I'm what does it mean? And I want to crack it open.
No, absolutely. Connect things even if you don't think they're connected. It can lead to some interesting things.
All
right. Basically, he's trying to tell me that all of my weird theories are actually good theories, and I'm onto something. So.
Or I'm steering you in a direction where it's yes, get so confused that I can do anything.
Rude.
Imagine
Look, there's no such thing as a bad
possibilities.
theory in D&D, because even if it doesn't come to pass, that just means the DM can just pull inspiration for some other fucked up shit.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's what we need, more fucked up shit from Danny.
Who doesn't need more? Man.
Yeah. Actually, I had an actual question for Dallas, which is for what you learned just specifically in that book alone, you got another name, right, for a stranger, another nickname essentially.
The Eye of Fear.
The Eye of Fear, which
Casual.
Love that.
Yeah. I guess we could talk about everything. How is Elowyn feeling?
Not good. I'm gonna be fully honest with you, not great.
There's also that little piece of information that none of us know about that only Elowyn does, and I
Yeah,
have still not watched that,
I have
and I will
also
not.
not watched it.
Guys.
but I'm so fucking curious.
I am very curious, but I am not doing it.
What was the point? Like, what was the question that you asked that made us have to take our headphones off? Because I can't remember now.
I asked how that creature ended up in the forest in the first place.
Oh, okay, this is good. Only you and Danny will know the answer to this, but that's another question I had too, which was, I wrote this during the session. I don't really remember like what exactly I was thinking, but I wrote, did the stranger get trapped in the wilder on purpose? So either in my mind, I was thinking either that meant like by the druids on purpose, because they were also like going there so they could keep an eye on him, or did he purposely like 3,000 years ago or whatever, when he kicked Reynard out, supposedly, did he go there on purpose because he was trying to fuck with the druids? I don't know.
Great questions. Yep.
Surprisingly, his GPS actually just took the wrong direction.
I hate when that happens.
And then
he
it
just got
ran out of
trapped.
battery and he's stuck.
Damn,
Crazy.
that sucks. Poor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all right. We'll turn his GPS back on for him.
I would like to talk more about this when we get to episode 25, because I think there was a
Okay.
lot at the end of that episode that really influenced Elowyn. That book was, I kind of pieced together like what we ended up figuring out in 25. I pieced together myself between 24 and 25. I think, from what we found in that book.
Okay. Yeah, we can delve into that a bit more. We're almost at the end of 24 anyway, so yeah, so we go through the rest of the statue. Whoa, nope. We go through the rest of the dungeon. I read the word statue and it made my brain say it. We find another statue of Ro. Rhea puts the wand in its hand and gets the scroll of Revivify. And then somewhere we find a trident. I don't remember where and when that happened.
It was in the room with the glyph of warding that exploded.
Which room was that?
That was the first room down that corridor.
Okay.
The room where I thought everyone would be at least like 20 feet behind me because the disease balloons exploded, but everyone was actually standing, breathing on my neck.
Not Elowyn and Cap.
No.
Yeah, Elowyn and Cap were the only ones who avoided that dex save.
Yeah.
Good
Lucky,
times.
I guess.
Cool. All right. Yeah, there's some other stuff that happened, but it's like kind of like Drac specific, where he yelled at me. So we'll talk about that on Tuesday.
Cool.
And we've talked about it here too. And let's just
And then you guys found the amulet and the bag of beans.
yes. Got me some beans that maybe we'll do something eventually. We'll see. And then yeah, we solve the lightning trap. And kind of get ready to go through the hallway. But then also there's like Abe's like underwater adventure, which I want to talk about a little bit because that was really cool. Like in a weird way, it almost feels like kind of like the most adventurous like Abe's ever been, if that's fair to say. Of just being like, oh, well, I can like go underwater, so I'll just like go investigate. Because I feel like he wouldn't always be like the first person to like take the lead on that necessarily.
So I think the context of that was important because we had fought the water things where Nell got knocked unconscious and was drowning. And like I barely got touched when the Sahuagin attacked on the boat. I barely got touched in the hallways that we were fighting enemies in. Like, I think I had the most health, the most resources. So I was just like, you all stay here. I'm gonna go look.
Fair.
Because I
You kind of did that
probably
whole
won't get one.
dungeon. We pushed
I
you.
tried.
You-
Everybody was just like, no, I want to, we're all going to go to a different room by ourselves.
Please let me walk into every room first.
To be honest though, like where would we have been at that point? It would have been like 5 hours in or something. Like that's like,
Yeah.
Well, in my own defense, we'll get into this more on Tuesday. My own defense of like what happened in that one room where I died almost. Like I was really tired at that point, and I was just like, yeah, I don't want to fuck around and look in rooms. Who gives a shit? Let's go. And then everyone got mad at me, and I was like, all right, like whatever. So it was like me, the player, was trying to do a thing, and then everyone was just like, Nell, you're really fucking up right now. And I was like, oh, okay.
So if the party met Christy, they'd be like, who are you?
He'd be like, stop fucking around. I'd be like, okay, I'm sorry. So yeah, that was kind of what was going on there. So I feel like we did try to be strategic at first, and then it like fell to the wayside like hour 5. But we did pick up the strategic stuff like at the beginning of the next episode, I thought, pretty well. So we can talk about that more in a second. But how did you feel about Abe's big day out on the water?
Lovely. It was super colorful and bright, and
yeah, I just love the visual of it. Just like,
yeah, the soundtrack was great.
Well, and yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about like you found that portal that, again, like we were guessing was the elemental plane of water, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did Abe feel about that? That was fucking cool as hell. Like you just were like, oh, just pop into like another plane casually.
He doesn't feel things normally, like physically, so that was really kind of a big moment for him of like weirdly like checking it off the to-do list, if that makes sense.
Seeing like another plane, like
well, be seeing another plane and like feeling a physical sensation without a horror monster causing it. Of the alter ego that used to live inside him. So yeah, I thought it was really cool. It was a big moment for Abe, a very like personal, quiet one as well. That didn't involve violence. Wow.
It's really poetic too, like having that like so soon after like everything that happened, with like the fight with the alter egos.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious to hear you talk more about that, Adam, just because that was the last episode I watched before coming in. So that's like the big context I have for your character.
Right.
Like all of the stuff that happened over the last 3 episodes while Abe is still dealing with the internal turmoil of the fucking shit that just happened to him. Any insight for little old me?
I think of it as a character is very like internally, he focuses a lot on kind of trying to think it through rather than go on impulse. And so I think, ironically, he's very quiet about it and just sort of internally thinking about it and having moments like we talked about earlier at the crossroads where it's proof of his choice having greater impact than just the people that he's sort of decided are his family.
I mean, I always got the sense as someone who's only known him for 3 episodes that even though he's quiet in moments, like he's always calculating something.
Yeah, definitely.
Like he, and I'm sure, yeah, like you, of the protective nature you might have with this group that you've become close with, always looking for the nearest exit, always looking for danger, like, would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this one was also, the Shambling Island was also a very specific case of like, it's not his element. Mm-hmm. It's not a battlefield. It's a place of religion and a place of commune and a place of living that he has no context for. But the people that he's with do. So his role in that situation is kind of changing to being like they're doing the intellectual work that needs to be figured out. He can do the physical labor of trying to make it safe and trying to keep an eye out for the well-being of his fellows. And then they drown from an ooze.
What?
That never happened. I don't know what you're talking about.
I just feel like you're putting me on the spot again, just like blasting my shit.
It was just so perfect.
Good.
Summed up the situation so perfectly.
It's kind of interesting, like hearing you talk about this, because it makes me think like you have this moment at the crossroads, and then almost, which is kind of like, I guess, highlighting like the negative repercussions of the choice that Abe made. But then you also have this like really like peaceful, almost like spiritual in a way moment of seeing the plane of water. And it's kind of like, does that then like maybe like offer some validation to Abe on like the other side of things? Like I made this choice to be like my own person, and this is kind of like the first moment of like getting to experience maybe what that feels like a little.
Not necessarily that moment specifically, because I mean, I think it would have happened regardless. But I think more the entire arc of like, there's a thing very Malgin central, again, the crossroads, but he could walk away from that. There was nothing keeping him there besides guilt, but then, you know, he's a guilty guy.
We all are.
Yeah,
Seems to be going around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think there were necessarily any moments in the dungeon specifically where, like, other than just being able to make the choice of going to this place with these people and not having to think about anything else. Like, he could just be in that space focusing on the people around him and the goals that we all share without having to be like, oh, well, Malden really wants me to kill these 4 people by next Saturday, you know?
To get his mind off it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's pretty much everything I had for episode 24. I don't know if you want to talk about this at the end, maybe, Danny, but I was going to have you like talk a little bit about the way you designed / created this dungeon, if you wanted to speak on that at all.
Sure. Talking about that after 25, I think, is probably a good idea.
Got it. I'll pop it down. Anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss for 24?
App 24?
Well, 24 is where the party learned a very valuable lesson. Always check for traps.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think I learned any lesson. I think
Don't worry,
everything.
Nell, you'll figure it out.
I think everything
Space.
everything I did was the right thing, and I'm not really open to any like negative criticism. So
I did kind of want to like harp on that for a moment, only because it was really interesting. Despite being a human and, you know, there being 600-year-old half-elf people in this party, I felt like Cap brought this really interesting experience of having been an adventurer for a while. Yeah, I've taken fireballs to the face and I've almost died plenty of times. So it was really cool for me to spout those little moments of like, always check for traps, always do this, because it was almost like, you know, Ben Kenobi giving Luke the this is what you need to do, because I might not always be there to tell you, right?
I mean, in a sense, you would have been the most experienced adventurer, because even though we
Probably.
have 2 members who are like over 300 years old, like they were like
Academics.
friends. Like they didn't like adventure before this, so like
And
they
that's how
have academic like knowledge, but not street smarts.
And that's how I convinced Denny to let me be a level ahead of you guys.
Oh, were you?
Were you
He
a level
was.
ahead of us?
I was.
Excuse
He
me?
was.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. We just leveled up anyway, so
You're welcome.
Oh dear. On the trap thing, I also thought it was funny because like that one went off, and you guys were checking for traps everywhere. I had no other traps in that dungeon.
But how are we supposed to know that, Denny?
No, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But what is a
classic
trap
us.
to do? What functions of a trap? Restrain, deter, and capture. This one was a
Right.
deterrent.
cool.
Or last one, kill, but
Yeah, see, and I'm curious to know maybe if we had known more about the mechanics of the dungeon. So you don't have to tell us this if you don't want to. But I'm always a big fan of traps that are only traps, obviously, for the people that are trying to mess with my stuff. Like the classic, you're in the kobold or the goblin dungeon, and there's a great big pit with leaves over it, and the kobolds are light enough that they can walk over the boards, but anyone heavier will fall through, right? That to me is a great trap because the people that are actively using the space can bypass it without even thinking. So I'm curious if there was any thought like that into the deterrents that were set up in this dungeon. And maybe you can touch on this when you talk about the dungeon as a whole in 25, but just to seed that for you.
well, I probably wasn't going to talk about this element anyway, so I can bring this up now. Like, I mean, aside from going into these rooms and finding things, you guys didn't like really ask me about like what was the function of this space before, whereas that one with the glyph was like a bedroom with that trident in it.
Right.
And in the meta, I could tell you that was Undini's room, the Archdruid's assistant. Whereas the other room that when Abe went on his water adventure and took that room into the left that was filled with vegetation, that was Shusumi's room, and it had another element of the key. Like, these were important rooms with locks and protections for specific items.
So were the
Did
traps?
Did we get what we needed to out of that room?
You got what you needed out of both, yeah?
What was in Yusumi's room?
The lock
The gem.
for the stone door.
Okay.
Yeah,
Would
the
you
gem.
say that the traps / deterrents for those individual rooms were like, were they inspired by the personality of the people that used to occupy them? Because that glyph was a great big fuck off goat of flame, right?
Yeah, and I mean that Undini is like a great healer. So like if anybody like, you know, became seriously injured by that and she was like, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that, heal them.
Or they were in need of healing and decided to pry into the private chambers of someone where they weren't supposed to. They would have been hit in the face with a trap and knocked unconscious.
Oh, don't worry, there's a shrine down there that has Revivify.
Yeah, they're fine.
I'm really far away from my microphone because I've got a cat on my lap. Cool. Are we good to move on to episode 25? Yep. Sweet. All right. So,
Reginald, there he goes.
Uh-oh.
battle time is over, Mom. So yeah, we started episode 25 off like really trying to like amp ourselves up for this fight that was coming up. So we're like, we're so fucked, we're all gonna die. So we were like, okay, we've got two or three uses of the ointment left. We're gonna heal with the ointment. We're passing out all the items. Got the sick amulet, which I already talked about. And then we're like, we're fucked. We can't attune anything because we can't take a short rest. It was really funny. It was just like right off the gate, like tactics. Like,
I loved the energy that we went into that episode with, because we were talking about, we had this whole group chat where Denny was like, you guys are gonna fucking die if you don't figure this out. And so then we had this whole like strategic conversation in our group chat. We're like, okay, team, the fuck are we gonna do? We're not dying today.
Yeah, it was
And we
really
didn't, so.
we didn't. Yeah, it was really fun energy to like start things off from. But then
Not even close, baby.
Honestly, I failed so many of my roles. You guys could have probably just went into that room with the previous episode's energy and still have been fine.
See,
No, I like to believe that it was our strategizing that
I think
won
yes,
that for
of
us.
yeah,
I think we created a momentum of fate that we.
Oh, yes,
got
of course.
that
My
room
bad.
with.
yeah. It's like, you know, when you like if you don't buy insurance, you need it, but if you spend the money on insurance, like nothing will happen. That was kind of the like what we were going in with, right? So,
That's right. I'd rather need it. Wait, no. I'd rather have it and not need it.
Yeah.
Need it and not have
Yeah.
Murphy's Law there.
mhm.
it.
But before we went in, we went back to go back to the underwater grotto. And so then Rhea went in, and I'll talk about this more when Logan's here on Tuesday, but dope ass, wasn't it like a nat 20, like persuasion, talking
It
to the
was
snake?
animal handling.
Animal
yeah.
handling. Oh my god, it was so good. Just like, hey friend, can we, what's that bowl all about? And Snake's like, go for it. Which was great. I was like,
Wanna
Denny,
drink my snake water?
did you always have that like bowl set up, or was it like after like all of us failed?
No,
wisdom
that
check?
bowl was there the whole time. You guys were just going to skip exploring it because there was a snake
I
in the
said we
room.
had to go back to the snake. Was it? But wait, did we avoid a fight? Like, was it gonna hurt us if Azariah didn't roll a nat 20?
If that didn't go well, yeah, it could have.
What was the DC?
All
Like,
right.
was it only like a nat 20? Like, could have succeeded there, or was like?
No, I mean, it would have been like, I think 15 is what I had it set at, so it wasn't that hard, especially considering that somebody was actually able to communicate with it. Like, if it was just people going in and being like, I'm gonna like walk around it and like do a little dance to be like, I'm cool, then it might have been like 20, but Azariah flew that test in flying colors.
What if I did like an interpretive dance and I tried to make myself look like a snake?
Yeah,
Oh.
maybe.
Then that would be a performance check, probably of a DC 20 as well.
Cool, not a problem. Just gonna open up my character sheet really quick. Just wanna see what I have.
Get
No,
Cap
that
there to
felt-
help you. That's advantage.
That felt like a good enough gamble with Azariah's tie to this place and their ability to speak to animals. I felt like it was a decent enough gamble to go try talking to that snake.
I got a 23. Yeah. I actually have a +4 to performance, so I could have done a cool little snake dance and it would have worked out. Wouldn't have been as poetic, but just putting it out there.
Yeah, that was a really nice time for Azariah to shine.
Yeah, it was really cool. So yeah, we'll talk about that more later, but I'm on the wrong page. Here we go. Yeah, so we took our short rest, which was so wonderful. Thank God for that. And then, yeah, some more stuff happens with Rhea that we'll get into later. But yeah, we go into the ooze room, which honestly, like, went really well for us, I feel like. So yeah, talking about this a little bit more, like, this was our first time going into fight, like, truly, like, attempting to be strategic, at least, like, in, like, the lead-in of, like, our walking order and everything, which I think we were really thinking, like, oh, something in this hallway is going to us, which didn't happen. But how do we feel, like, as a group, like, that whole fight went? Like, I don't know, like, if we all were, like, super strategic during, but we definitely, like, tried to set ourselves up.
I think we did pretty well. Moving in, we were cautious. You know, most people went to the center, but I made sure to stay around the edges to keep an eye out for things, and that ended up being a reason why we didn't get dropped on, which was great.
So we do need to talk to Logan about this, because he keeps trying to put Rhea like, oh, I'm just gonna pop over here and investigate. I'm like, what are you doing? We're really clear about how it needs to be like myself and Abe in the front, and then Logan's just like, I'm just gonna deke over here, and like, just kind of being like, oh, there's something ahead, and like, if you move close enough in, we could see, right, like, the whole thing was connected. I was like, that was not what we discussed when we went in the hallway.
That's not the point of having a party order.
It gave me the same energy of, like, whatever it was that Rhea did when we first entered the room for the bid, like when we were in that, like, holding area before we went into the elevator.
Walked into the center of the room.
Yeah, I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we had a plan of, like, how this was gonna go down. And Rhea,
if Logan,
and everyone's sorry, Logan's not here to defend himself, but everyone's yelling at Nell. Everyone's yelling at Nell about, like, oh, you're not being a leader right now. Like, be responsible. It's like, the fuck is Rhea doing? Anyway,
look, I'll recommend, if Logan or any of you have never read this, ladies and gentlemen, Live to Tell the Tale. Wonderful little, they're not sponsoring, but they absolutely should. Excellent book about tactics for player characters in D&D.
Oh, I should read that. I know fuck all about, like, tactics.
There's an earlier version that's a free PDF that I think I sent to your group chat.
Yeah.
Highly recommend. Super interesting. Even if you don't care about tactics, just great read.
It wasn't the like being a bad leader thing that people were upset about. It was the, oh, I almost died. I got healed with like 5 HP. I'm gonna get punched. Cap, come here, beat the shit out of me. Put me back into the unconscious state, even though Draq'ull used one of his,
people
like,
really misunderstood what was happening there. I had 7 hit points, and like, okay, that really would have put on Cap. It's like if you, like, jokingly are like, oh, like, slap me, and then someone, like, fully, like, sucker punches you. Like, I just wanted, like, someone to, like, hit me. Like, Elowyn could have done it, and then I've been like, cool, it feels like my, like, effect wasn't wasted. But everyone's just like, oh, he's a tavern brawler, so he's gonna fucking knock you out. I'm like, in that situation,
No, he's not.
I'm like, in that situation, that would have been on Cap, and like, why would he have done that? That would have been fucking insane. Like, to be like,
if
oh,
someone
hit
comes
you,
up to you
like,
and says,
okay.
yo, hit me, I'd be like,
yeah.
okay, they're about to show me something cool, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess having the experience of a younger brother hit me means you're gonna get decked in the shoulder really fucking hard.
I mean, look, Cap wouldn't have pulled his punch, but he wouldn't have bonus action grappled or anything that the Tavern Brawler would have done.
Extremely hard punch.
I have to say,
episode
Christy, that whole
24.
moment of finding the amulet, feeling like strong, and then like immediately bouncing back from unconscious and just being like, yeah, let's fight. Like, that was such a cool character moment.
The amulet wasn't part of that, was it?
That wasn't even in play yet. She didn't know anything about it.
No, I had a wild magic surge that gave me, like,
that's what it was. You had
resistance to a bunch of stuff. And then I was like,
mage armor or whatever.
Yeah, I was basically like, oh, this is so cool, like, freaking wasted now, because it only lasts for a minute. And so I was just kind of like, oh, like, someone, like, hit me while this thing is up to feel like I used it. And then I was just like, fucking pay attention to what we're doing here, bitch. And I was like, okay, sorry, fuck.
But see, again, like, I'm a big fan of, like, mechanically stupid, but in character, brilliant. Because that's exactly what that kind of character would have done. Would have been like,
It's just
this
like-
is cool, I want to use it.
Again,
Also, we have to keep in mind that we were all under the effect of that moving forward, trying to get to the end thing. That was like, I don't know how everybody else was playing that, but like me, I was basically, Gideon is just extremely fucking irritable right now. And like, I could tell that Drac was sort of doing the same, or Anthony was doing the same thing. So like, sure, like Cap definitely, like, there was no intention to fucking put Nell on her ass with this punch that he was going to hit her with. But it was just like, what the fuck? Like, we met this guy yesterday. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, meta-wise, absolutely he wouldn't have put you on your ass. But like, in character, it would have been like, the fuck are you doing?
And I think you all, as a party, from what I've observed from past episodes that I wasn't part of, you all do a very good job of separating that and understanding that, like, yes, in character, I know this is a really dumb thing to be doing, even though if I know it's going to be like 1 hit point, who cares, kind of thing.
that's all I wanted
and it's
to
the
be
same
was
thing,
like a
like, as
one
soon as
hit
Nell
point,
dropped,
like,
right?
hit. Yeah.
As soon as you dropped in that one fight, everyone was suddenly like, holy shit, this is the end of the world. Even though you're all experienced D&D players, and you know that there's ways of bringing people back, but your characters don't know that, right?
Yeah, and like, honestly, it is one of those things where like, it was fully just me, the player, being like, fuck, I want to use this thing before it goes away. And I'm trying to like retrospectively like justify it as Nell. But it's like, I think you would feel slap happy if you like went down and they were back up and you're like, whoa, I'm feeling really good and powerful now. Like, fuck, like,
The
and then
adrenaline rushing, like, yeah.
And then I got yelled at and I was like, I don't want to be here anymore.
I mean, there's also the other added element that it was like almost midnight and we were all really tired. And I
which
don't
is
know about
why
you
like
guys.
I made that choice, was because I was so tired in real life. I was like, yeah. Anyway,
But-
it's fine. That was
yeah.
did not really mean to get back to this point, but I just got angry at Logan for some reason. Anywho. All right, so before the fight actually started, we made our way to the center platform of the like goo pathways. And while we were there, we saw there was like a door on the ground, right? And then there was like that mural that we were able to look at more later, but it showed some dragons and some sort of like fiend creature, but parts of it were covered by this ooze. And then it was Ryan, right? You had this like dope, like, didn't you crit on like a perception check or something?
Yeah, I think so. You know, cook checks and perception checks. That's what we do.
Really important
What
thing.
you're here for.
But yeah, like you saw like the monster on the ceiling, right? And so like we were able to prepare before it dropped down. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'm willing to
Yeah.
bet that would have been a whole lot of damage.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess it is like, so like part of it is we went and we had like a strategy, but then like also during this fight, so much of it was just the fact that like we were rolling really well. Like,
The dice were really on our side.
so like, because there's so many things that could have happened differently, right, Danny? Like I'm assuming you were expecting on trying to get like a surprise round on us or something. Like,
Yeah. I mean, there was elements of surprise things. There were big attacks that never landed.
Well, it definitely seemed to attack in the way that an ambush creature would, right? It's hard to detect, it's hard to see, it moves fast, it teleports, it brings people with it. So, you know, as a classic metagamer, I'm watching this thing going, yeah, it wants to get in, hit hard, get out, reassess, find a new. So it was all about trying to ambush and get the drop on us.
I gotta say, loved the terrain manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
That
Very cool.
was
Yeah.
so cool.
it was so cool.
I've never fought a creature that just cut the battlefield in half and was like,
That
this
was
is my
so
zone.
scary when that
Danny,
happened.
was that their
Like,
first
oh,
legendary
no.
creature?
No.
Okay, so
I've used legendary creatures
Lair
before.
actions and all that shit.
This might be the first one that they fought in a lair, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is
I
the
mean,
first layer
like,
action beat.
as Ryan was saying, that's a great example of how to use lair actions to effectively, like, fuck up a party's plans.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like it was, I feel like, yeah, it really didn't go like the way we were expecting. Like, at least like everything like I had prepared for it to do, like none of it ended up like being like coming up at all, because it just kept like moving around in different ways. And I was like, all right.
I think what was really impressive, though, is despite that, everybody found ways to adapt their tactics to the new information and the new system, right? Because we had kind of all talked as a group about, okay, well, we'll try and set Gideon up for like a really big shot. So, Azariah is doing the thing and help me. It's like a help action, but not quite their ability. Yeah. And then I had the commander strike that allowed Ryan to use like a reaction to shoot. And everyone was just coordinating like, okay, the plan is out the window, but we can still salvage it kind of. And that to me is the most exciting part of combats in D&D.
Yeah, that was such a cool combo. Like, we don't have a battle master anymore, but
dude, battle masters are so fun.
That was so. Fighter is my favorite class. I've played several battle masters. Oh, they're so fun. Oh, that was so cool. Though. I'm so glad that roll actually worked because I rolled so many ones.
That was such a good fight for Gideon. You looked so good. Yeah.
I did so much damage. I was so proud of my boy.
Yeah.
I feel so bad, like retroactively about like I like dive in the water. You're like my guns. I was like, oh shit. Like, oops.
That's not even a mechanical thing, though, right? You just made that up.
Well, the way I look at it is just like I know a little bit about guns. Your boy was a bit of a history buff when he was younger, and guns were one of his favorite things to look at because they go boom and they're cool. So basically, when I was like, well, this is a world where it's the early stages of black powder technology and like coal technology, like they're building a train and all that stuff. I'm like, well, even as far up as like the Vietnam War, if you got your gun wet, like it just wouldn't fire, like unless you had like an AK, which was easily fixable. But I don't reckon that this is a very easily fixable gun.
I kind of wish there had been a moment for Cap and Gideon to bond over the guns, because I think I pulled mine out to give to who was holding the bag of holding? Was it you, Christy?
It was Nell, yeah.
When we were going in the water, but I don't think I ever shot it once.
No, you didn't.
Which is fine. Wasn't really his thing. It was kind of like he had stolen it from someone and was like, this looks cool. I don't know how it fucking works. But yeah, I think if I could go back and curate a moment, it would be like the two of them just having a short rest somewhere, fixing their guns together.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that'd be
nice.
fun. Next time.
Was there anything that we didn't really get to see with also does this monster have a name? Because it was like amalgamation of two different things, right, that you put together.
Yes, and I kind of like I merged them, so it was a mixture between a Balhanath and a Ublex.
I fucking knew it.
Yeah. And what Balhanaths are, and this is kind of where the dungeon kind of ness came into play, but it draws things to its lair by making them there was that sense of excitement. That was part of that creature. It also has reality bending abilities, so like that's why the terrain was shifting, why that library might have been there.
Wait, what kind of creature is that? Is it just like a monster, or is it like a something?
I think it's an aberration, I want to say.
I think so, yeah.
A quick
And
Google.
Balhanath, I believe, is an aberration, yeah.
And then the Ublex is like an ooze that kind of like assimilates people and like steals their identities.
It's an aberration, yeah.
Also,
CR rating 11.
Oh yeah.
What?
Never mind. We all
That's
lived.
high.
It's fine.
Is that high?
This is why he told us that we need to use our items.
To amend something.
Also, CR means nothing in this campaign.
It's true.
You know how the CR of the friggin' thing that we fought in Abe's episode? CR 13. And that was like 5 out of 7 or 6 of you.
I mean, CR means nothing in normal D&D, but yes, absolutely in this game too.
Okay.
And sorry, to amend something I said about guns or stuff. AK is not easy to fix. They just work for some reason. You get mud in that thing, it's still gonna fire. It's not the fixing. It's just gonna work.
That's why they're popular.
Yeah, that's why they're cheap and they're popular.
Yeah, I was actually typing up like a comment at you about afterwards.
I figured you were.
got
I had
that wrong,
to
so-
amend that before the mob.
Dear Ryan, I was very upset.
Dear
by how
Ryan,
you
you're
talked
dumb.
about me.
Like I know. Anyways, yeah.
We could have
Guns
had
still jam
traffic
to this
get into
day.
our channel.
Guns still jam up to this day. So. Anyways, that's it. Okay.
Okay.
I want to know more about the memory eating thing that creature never got to do, but I am so afraid of.
The thing that we rolled really well
The thing that everyone
Yeah.
succeeded, but I'm so scared of it.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay, when you when that happened and like you said that kind of like you explained it enough to me to grasp it. I was like, oh, this could be a doorway into Gideon's fucked up shit. And this combat's gonna go very
I
differently.
know. I was very afraid of where this might take us.
I was like, oh god, am I gonna just comatose for the rest of this battle? Because that might just be what happens. So
Yeah,
So
essentially
what was it exactly?
what that move was it was trying to like steal your memories, dealing massive amounts of psychic damage, and also each time it would happen, you would begin rolling a d4 and subtracting it from your d20 rolls. If it did it again to you, you would turn it to a d6. It would grow and grow every time you got hit.
oh, you know,
Which memories was it gonna eat?
Yeah,
I
how
can't
did
tell
it
you that.
determine?
Okay,
You would have
so-
just. Oh my god, you would have just picked.
Yeah, probably.
That's
Denny,
so fucked up.
dude, you would have had a heyday with Gideon because there's so much that he doesn't know. So it's just like you could literally dig through his
Sure,
sub- his
take
sub-
anything.
Dude,
Well,
you could literally just erase the fact that he knows the event happened. Like, it's just
Well,
like,
that's what I was afraid of. That's why I was so like, oh god, like that truly could be a problem. I didn't know what you were gonna do with it.
I mean, like what it probably would have been. It probably wouldn't have been like it steals the memories. It's more like it absorbs them, weakens you, and then gets you in a state where it's just like, well, you're gonna be part of the ooze now, and now your memories don't matter. They're mine.
Okay.
Like, so
Well,
while
that's
you're
much
fighting
better.
them, it's still like
Oh, okay. Now I'm not concerned.
it's more
at all.
like it's less like the D4 thing is like I don't know how to do things now. It's more like, well, I just went through a traumatic psychic event.
right.
stop. Snatch that out of the brain.
I think. Does everyone want to say like what their most traumatic memory to have lost would have been?
No,
You know
I
what?
don't,
It's probably
because
safer
that's
if
what
I
I was
don't
really
know that.
afraid of.
Probably something that I don't even know.
Fair. Mine, I think, if you had made me forget my twin, that would have been really fucked up.
Nella's twin?
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's frozen in time right now, back at home.
There's so much I don't know about all of you.
Oh, there's so much.
I'm having another cigar.
There's so much Gideon doesn't know about himself.
Correct.
Yeah.
What was that? How old was that?
How old am I?
How old am
Yeah.
I? We've solved that. That's good.
But in terms of like anything else that like we might have missed, no, we got to see everything I wanted to see out of it. Like, I loved being able to manipulate the room like that. That was so fun to watch you guys figure out around that. And I was like, yeah, so there's going to be 4 types of things. There's going to be cut in the room. There's going to be water turns to acid. There's going to be volcanoes, which I just popped in at the end because I was like, oh, this didn't happen, so let's volcano.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the grippy floor. Yeah.
I just,
Pretty
oh my
clever.
god, if I could just fanboy about lair actions one last time. It's such a cool way. DMs, if you're listening, use more lair actions, even if it's not a legendary monster. Just be like, this skeleton boss has lair actions. Because it's a super cool way to change the conditions of the encounter in a way that isn't subtracting hit points necessarily or taking away abilities. It's just what you thought was the basis of this fight is now different, and it can change things up in such a cool and interesting way.
It just gives more flavor. And,
Yeah.
Like even like a goblin boss, like literally you could be fighting a goblin boss, and one of his lair actions would be like call for reinforcements, and just like 4 more goblins show up, and it's like, oh, okay, great. And then what's the next one? It's like, I don't know.
Or fucking he pulls on a cord and they've got rigged explosions in the stalactites in the
Yeah.
ceiling that fall down, and now suddenly the whole area is difficult terrain. Or suddenly he's got 3/4 cover because he's behind an avalanche. Like, I don't know. It doesn't change it that much, but it makes the party think a bit more.
It also makes you as a DM think a bit more about like who this person is, because it's like, what kind of actions would they have? Like, for example, the explosions one that Jesse just brought up, like, that dude is crazy. Like, it's just like he's gonna have explosives rigged in the floor and in the ceiling, and like
I'm a firm believer, if you're fighting something on its turf, it's gonna play dirty.
absolutely. Okay, anyways, their actions go
Yeah,
back.
rant over it.
What was my other question? Oh, Adam, did you get to use any like new abilities for your new class at all for this? Because this was like your first fight after switching. Not really.
On the boat, I used Fighting Spirit and Action Surge, but I didn't get a melee with the thing.
How long have you had that? What's it called?
The Gem of Brightness?
Yeah.
We've had it since pretty early on.
Episode 10 or
Yeah,
11.
wow.
I think it was 10.
Didn't Fallon gave it to us, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Gideon
That
held
plus
it
the
originally.
mithril.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used it as my flashlight.
I loved it, and that's kind of part of why I mentioned it in your little sign off there when I wrote Ape, me beacon of light, because it just made sense that like the strong fighter guy had the thing to rally around, and that item kind of became a symbol of that. I really dug that.
I was so glad you used it offensively. I was like, I'm so sorry. It's immune to being blinded.
Yeah.
That's
a
I
good
didn't even know
try.
it could do that though, so that's cool.
It's got 3 different abilities, yeah. It's really cool.
Well, dope. Also, I feel like you did me a huge favor in that fight when you had it like teleport right next to me. Because like I like that whole turn, it was like around the corner with Elowyn and Draq, and I was planning like, okay, I think I can get there. Because at that point the floor had changed back, and I was like, maybe I'll fucking use Expeditious Retreat because I cast it on myself. And then it moved to me, and I was like, motherfucker. It was great because it was right next to me, so I got to hit it. But I was like, I didn't fucking use this spell one time.
Hit it hard.
But yeah, it was so fucking cool. Oh my god, I can't believe it was 1 hit point off from my crit for then Rhea to finish it. It was like, especially like being Rhea, like sorry
Yeah.
Logan, but like not really doing like a lot, like the running gag being like not always doing a whole lot in a fight, to be able to like do the finishing blow on this like in the first Druid Enclave that we go to, like so good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
and
so-
Dallas, how scared were you when it got into melee when you were in paralyzed?
Oh, I was so scared. I knew I was in trouble. I knew I had that snapback ability though. So I was kind of like, if I can at least make this happen, I can get out of its way.
It was so cool to see that ability
and then-
finally work.
Yeah. I think that's the second time I've tried to use it, but the first time it has worked. Very nice. I was probably more scared when it picked me up and held me over the fire or over the acid water, and then Nell started critting it, and I was like, oh, I am gonna die here, aren't I?
Yeah.
I am gonna fall in that water.
We were all there. Someone would have caught you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I felt bad, but I was like, I did have like healing and stuff, so I was like,
Yeah, it didn't do that much
grab
damage.
you,
I just
but-
wasn't sure how much damage that acid water was gonna do, and I had already
Yeah,
taken
fair.
a couple hits, and I was kind of like, ooh, that might be a problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that was the fight. And yeah, then we meet
Shusumi and Undini.
thank you. It's just now, okay, so before the name I had in my head was like just Sumi. And now I want to say Shishimi, so I'm having a hard time. But yeah, so we meet the Archdruid and the keeper of this enclave. Truly, there's so much info that we learned here that I'm gonna wait till Logan is here to talk about it a bit more, because it was a hefty dump, and most of it's relevant to Rhea. So
There were so many times, like, after watching the VOD, I was just like, oh, roll insight! We know they're a liar now!
yeah, that is true.
We know they lie.
Yeah, they lied literally almost every time. Like, they got caught like 3 or 4 times in a row lying. And they just kept lying.
She
And I was like,
lot. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh, after that happened, I was like, just always roll insight. Like, literally, just every sentence they say.
To be fair,
I don't even.
they don't know us at all.
Yeah.
To be
They
fair,
know Azariah.
lying.
That's not even true either.
Yeah,
I mean,
They
that's like-
know.
They
helped
know of
create
them.
Azaria.
Yeah.
yeah, but they're
Yeah.
just taking them at their face value of that being like,
I guess that's
yeah,
true.
I'm the child of Saffronis Forest
Well,
tree thing.
I mean,
that-
there is a little bit of a uniqueness to Azaria that does kind of lend some credence to that. So
Those shape changes.
yeah, fair.
Well, I've got you, haven't I?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, you
Yeah, I
got
have,
me.
like-
Say, nah, bye.
I have a
How
question.
many Dryad
for-
Eladrins are out there?
Yeah, I have a question for Logan and like Rhea in character that I'm so desperate to ask, so I'll wait for it. But yeah, I am gonna skip past a lot of that if that's okay with everyone, unless there's anything like particular about this conversation You wanna talk
No,
about,
I'd
like-
love to hear Logan's thoughts on it. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna kind of focus in on Elowyn, because you were the other person who really like had some big moments from this. So yeah, you bring up like the stranger, and Shusumi freaks out, which like took me way off guard. I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah,
All
me
right.
too.
And it's like really heated for a second. Like thankfully we kind of like were able to negotiate it down. But yeah, like how were you feeling in that moment? Because I was stressed. I was like, I can't get involved with this because it has nothing to do with me. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is like how it's like that's Elowyn's whole thing is, you know, she needed to find this information. This was, you know, I feel like clearly there was some sort of connection with this Druid Enclave and the stranger, because we found that book. And I, like I said, I kind of pieced together that we had part of its name and a new title for it, which was interesting. So I thought bringing the title up to them might help, which I guess it did. But yeah, I wasn't. She did freak out about it, which took me off guard. And then she was lying about it, and I was And then she was like, "Oh yeah, that creature's the maker of the infernal plane." And then I went, "Oh god, okay, cool, nifty."
That sounds fun.
Were
That's
you
really cool.
expecting at all for there to be like a connection between the stranger and like the Druid enclaves?
No, because I think even in the previous episode in 24, when we found that book, Azariah at one point was like, "What is that doing here?" And I was like, "That's a great question. What is that doing here?" Because I think like I did come into this thinking that I would ask the Druids about the stranger, but only because they're like ancient creatures. And I was like, do you know what happened 3,000 years ago? You know, that was really what I was coming in here with. We learned a lot more information here than I was expecting to learn.
Yeah, it's really interesting
And
'cause
it
it's,
really
like, it's so, like,
confirmed fears
interwoven.
that I have had for a long time, which was neat.
Which part? Like what part specifically?
I think I talked about this in an after party ages ago, where I was like, now that we know it's an infernal creature, and it's not just like tricky archfey, giggle. I was like, what is like learning its name actually going to do? Like, what is this creature now that it's infernal?
In a weird way, I was saying this earlier today, it kind of like lends more like strength to like the crack theory that like that the stranger and Walela are connected, because like in a sense, like truly I don't actually believe that they're the same person. Like like aesthetically it doesn't really seem like it could be, we don't know, but I think from what we've learned, like the stranger wants you, like obviously it's trapped there, and so I think it's like doing all these curses because it's just trying to have any sort of like minion, be it like unwilling ones, that can like get its name, because it'll be released and then it could like wreak whatever havoc it wants to. So like you giving it its name is going to release it. So in a way it's like maybe Walela is like one of its minions in that sense of being like, because then like Walela has her own things about like wanting to ascend to godhood as well. So it's like whether or not like they are actually connected, like they do have kind of like parallels to them. So
Tinfoil hats, baby.
Yeah. No, it's it's all kind of really bad.
I mean, like, because like if in other after parties you've mentioned like how you're like, oh fuck, like what if like Walela ascends and like, you know, it's gonna fuck all this shit up. It's like, well, what if you release like the creator of the infernal plane, you know? Like
I was, you know, I have had so many thoughts in the last 7 days. The number of messages I have written to Denny and deleted is insane. I have just like 3-page stream of consciousness going that is all over the place.
Oh my god, I would kill to read that.
No. Yeah. Maybe someday.
That'll be in the DVD special features.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my
No,
God.
my brain has been in so many places in the last week, just trying to figure out what we do now.
Can I just say, when I signed with this campaign, and Denny was like, "Ryan, what are you looking for with this D&D experience?" I told him I was looking for some like heavy, like cosmic horror vibes and all that jazz, and that's why I made Gideon. I was like, you know, this backstory about this event that happened and nobody like kind of remembers, right? And blah 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 blah. Basically, he survived a horror movie. I didn't expect that I was going to get even more from everybody else, so I'm just loving every bit of this.
I've thought about that before as well, where you're like, wow, I can't wait to see Denny do horror. And then I reread the message he sent me about my encounter with the stranger, and I'm like, he's done horror. You just don't know it.
I'm very excited. I've loved every bit of it.
Honestly, that bit of going over like your encounter with the stranger, I was like, this is like my horror.
It was
like
this
is
very
brilliant.
scary.
I'm so proud of this.
Yeah, it's real scary.
I think we
haven't heard that, have we? Like,
no, I don't believe so. And I believe my
Interesting.
first attempt at horror in D&D was actually with a one-shot with Jesse, Jason, and Matt.
What?
Yeah, that was my first attempt at horror in D&D.
Why, Denny, that took place at my old apartment.
It did.
Wowzers.
But I think like one of the things for Elowyn now, like that I've just been struggling with is like, you know, for 300 years we've been like, we gotta find information. You know, I gotta talk to people. I'm gonna read books. But this, like, we actually know what to do now, right? Elowyn actually knows like concrete steps to take at this moment, and that's,
I feel like that's kind of like
unfortunate.
Yeah, I feel like that's honestly like a really, like, it's cool to see it play out like this, but it's a really like common, not common, but like a, what am I trying to say here? It's like a trope in a sense, but like one that feels like really like interesting to see it play out in this context of like being like, oh, this is the thing that I'm searching for, and I put all my time and energy into it, and then once you get it, it's like, it's not, I don't actually want this.
Turns out.
Yeah. So
Elowyn's about to have an arc.
Yeah, it's like, it's really fun because like when you read it, it's one thing, but I love seeing it like in the D&D context because it's like you're like an active person that's involved in like doing it. I'm so interested to see how it goes.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think at
Something
the end of the campaign, I think this is the episode we're going to refer back to as like a very important episode.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's
Something
a lot of
that
things
I'm curious about.
A lot of things I'm thinking that I can't talk about, but man. There's a lot of important information today.
It'll be really fun to see it play
Something
out.
that I'm really curious about, because Elowyn and Cap had that moment after the celebration on the deck of the ship where you put his name in the book, which he doesn't know what the fuck that means. But I'm really interested maybe to have some chats with Denny in the future about, you know, is there anything that Cap is doing behind the scenes while you're all off having adventures? Are there rumors that he's gathering in taverns and people that he's talking to? Because there was the moment we had when I said, you know, some things aren't written down in books, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really interested to see if there's information that's going to be gathered now that your party is starting to make a name for itself and is starting to branch off. You have all these other allies and that are all putting feelers out into the world. You're starting to reach tier 2 of the game. You know, it's like you're going to be gathering information and resources almost passively, and it's going to be really cool to see the influence of the party grow while you're off doing your other specific adventures.
I'm curious to see what Cap gets up to.
Everyone brought their backstory A game in such a massive way that like all of yours feels like almost like on a cosmic sense now. I'm like, mine feels like pretty small potatoes ultimately.
I
didn't want this. I didn't ask for this.
I love
wanted to
this.
be a farmer.
I love this too, and I've talked about this before. I'm like, we've got like things like Azariah and Elowyn's, and to an extent as well, Gideon's in a sense, that are like these big cosmic mysteries, and whereas things like Anthony's and yours, Christy, they're a bit more down to earth. Like, I'm just trying to help my family. And Abe's was like, I have no idea who I am. I'm also tied to some sort of cosmic entity. And now, he is now in a grounded storyline for himself. I love this.
Well, you need that, right?
Exactly.
Like, I get, this is the writer in me talking, but it's like, if everybody's got the cosmic epic story, then nobody's really epic, right? Because by comparison, you're all sitting at the same tone. but by seeing the peaks and valleys, the comparison there, it makes for a very well-rounded party when it comes to backstory, and it gives you, Denny, a lot of stuff to pull from, because sometimes you can just have the beach episode where we go kick the ass of some guy that was pissing off whoever, and then it's one and done.
But also, it gives me the chance to, instead of over the entirety of a campaign, everybody finishes their backstory plots all in the last 5 sessions. Instead, we can get through the grounded ones first because we know like a bit more detail. And even then, Christy, yours is a bit more cosmic because it's like you're dealing with different types of magic. You're dealing with archfey and like uncertainty in where these sources of magic come from. So it seems more grounded, but there is some depth to all of these storylines.
Yeah, it's gonna be curious to see how it all plays out. But it's interesting, like how like the ones that feel like bigger now, like are the like Elowyn, Gideon, and Ria's, and like how interconnected they all feel currently. Because it makes it hard. Because like obviously, like at some point, I really want to go to the Wilder, but it does not feel like the time to do that at all. Because it's like we feel like we're on like kind of like a timeline here. So this is more just me being excited to see like how you navigate the story like moving forward now for us. So
yeah, there is like a weird like time crunch to it now as well.
Yeah. At least like we know that like so far like things haven't triggered yet. So like we still have kind of like a little bit of like bonus time before like things are really fucked. So
I mean, the time crunch has existed since episode 4. You guys just haven't really thought about it.
Around.
I mean,
so
Adam has thought
now
about
it's just
it.
Like, oh shit.
Adam's admitted his guilt to having his detour episodes, whereas you guys could be progressing the story. But now you should realize that countdown hasn't actually began. It's going to at some point, but it hasn't yet.
Abe tried desperately to convince the party to.
I mean,
skip
I know.
traveling time.
It wouldn't be D&D if there wasn't a time crunch, but you just spent it all fucking around.
Yeah.
To
There's actually a
their
question
credit,
that Anthony had that he had apparently thought about afterwards. He can talk about this more, but it was like, should we have asked them like the specific locations of the other enclaves? Because we have like the general area. I was like, that's actually a really good point.
You could probably retcon that. I don't know. That comes down to, again, characters being smarter than the
But
players,
then it's like,
maybe.
We don't know enough about like the network of like this culture to know if like they genuinely like knew a whole lot about each other, or if like too much time has gone by or what have you. But
I'll tell you guys,
like oops.
Don't worry about asking that question. They don't know.
I was gonna say I have a
yeah.
feeling that they don't keep tabs, just because like I remember who was it? I think it was the Archdruid when we brought up Renan. Yeah, it was like then someone was like, oh, he's a keeper, and then they were like, oh, yeah, I don't really keep up. Like I know the Archdruid's names, and I know some of the keepers, but they're like everybody else. I don't.
You also could be asking allies to look up information on plot point 3 while you're busy dealing with plot point 2, so that by the time you're done, you can go straight to number 3.
That's a good point.
I don't know why my brain works like that, but
I mean, that's
I miss a
of
lot
what,
of big things, but those little things, I got them.
Like what you just said, Jesse, is kind of what I was trying to establish in a sense before we left Fallon Bridge by like wanting to have someone else in power, like be accountable for what's happening with Kardrac and like all of this stuff, because like that's something I feel like is like current. It's like that sense of time that's happening like while we're doing other things, like whatever is going on there is progressing, and I'm afraid it's going to get to a point where we're not like in a place to deal with it, and then we're going to be trying to convince people while it's actively happening and no one's going to believe us. So it's like we need to have some sort of like paper trail,
and that's what I meant by the
working
sphere
on
of influence of the party, right? Like
yeah.
You guys are controlling far beyond just the immediate area around you.
I
I
think
love
like
that about higher level D&D.
Yeah, like we're in like the basic beginning steps of it, where like we're trying to like lay that groundwork, and I like as of right now I don't think like we're necessarily being taken like seriously. Like they're like making notes of it, being like, okay, like well we'll see, but I feel like shit's gonna hit the fan. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, like 3 months ago someone said something to us about something. Yeah, well.
I mean, Cap's name isn't worth much around the Gulf, but he'll throw it behind you.
Sweet. Well, we'll see what happens. Yeah. Mostly what I had for today's session, but we wrapped kind of everything up at the Enclave, and then we returned to Ganry to say our goodbyes to Cap. Are we ever going to find out what that deal was that you were rushing back for, or is that for like if you come back sort of a thing?
I could tell you, but I'm not gonna.
Basically what I
Because
expected.
I don't know what other interaction you'll have with him. Right?
That I'm not going to tell you because I don't know.
Oh no, I know what it is. I just don't know that Cap wants you to know yet.
That's fair.
It's not like it's anything cool. It's just, you know, he does do illegal shit, and you're all paladins and clerics, so.
Yeah. And then, yeah, we made our way out of the city, and I've fully forgotten. You gave us a book? Is that right? You gave me a book of like your story, right?
Do you want to hear the dedication again?
No, because it's gonna make me sad.
I'll send it to the group chat right before I leave the group chat.
Oh, that's so
God.
fucking tragic.
So sad.
Wow.
Oh my god. Okay. Cool. All right. But yeah, I thought that moment was so beautiful, Jesse. Like,
Yeah.
I had that planned since halfway through the first session.
yeah, I was fully like tearing up a little until like you had some like joke in there that made me laugh, and I was like, okay. I think maybe it was like the dice right at the end or something like that, and I was like,
Because every time you brought it up, I was like, I can't tell her because I know I'm gonna give it to her.
oh, that's so fun. That's like my favorite thing about like having a gift plan for someone. When like they mention something, you're like,
Yep. Well, and from the moment you were the first one to walk to the table, because I was kind of thinking when Denny and I were talking about the magic items, I was like, because I think, Denny, you had said to me when building the character, you can pick up to rare in whatever you call it, quality. And I thought, nah, I'm just going to pick things that seem cool. And both of those are like uncommon. So they're like,
Not even. They're common.
oh, well, there you even go, right? It's like, whatever. But I was like, these seem really piratey. And especially the charlatans die. So as soon as you were the one to come to the table and interact with me about it, I was like, oh, I'm giving the party this item. Because they're going to do weird shit with it, and I can't wait.
yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see now like how I use that, because it's like it would not be such like a fucking problem for any of my other D&D characters where you're like, fuck yeah, I love like lying and doing stuff, and now I'm just like, gotta figure this one out. But
But the
I'm
thing
really
is, you
excited.
don't even need to think of it as like lying to someone, right? Like maybe you are telling the truth and you just happen to be talking to someone who's only going to listen to the rules of chance or something, right? Like maybe you meet a Cap kind of character who isn't friendly and you're going to have to play on their turf to get them to listen to you because you know you're being honest, right?
yeah, well, I don't know, we'll see like where things go, because like obviously I can't predict like what situations I'm gonna have to use it in, but I could like see a world in which like Nell becomes like really cutting because she feels like she has no other alternative, especially like after like feeling like she blew it in the dungeon at that one moment of just being like, okay, maybe I do have to stop fucking around and just like buckle in and like do this until it's done, and then I can live my life for me, which is hard for her because she's already felt like she's been like living a lie for so long. So we'll see how it goes. But
yeah, I had been working on that kind of moment. I had like a version of it written up after the first episode where I thought, okay, if he dies, then they're gonna find it like with his stuff. If he lives, then he's just gonna sneak the book into someone's bag. And then anytime kind of something interesting happened, I went back and updated it a bit. Like I added the thing about gathering rumors, and I added the bit about you all loving books, because originally it wasn't a book, it was just a note taped to the die. And then I thought, no, I'm actually going to do a specific dedication. So I wrote all of your character names down. And as we were playing, I kept trying to see if I could observe moments. And I tried not to force them. I tried to just think, is there a moment that Cap's having with each of them where he might do a little personalized dedication to them? And I think it happened to turn out that I had a moment with everyone. So I'm really happy that happened, you know?
yeah, you had such a cool way of approaching like you guesting on this thing of just being like, I'm gonna make this really fucking meaningful. And it's just like, God, that level of like foresight. I don't know if I would have like necessarily like, because you were like, I'm gonna be like a like support character. I'm like gonna try and like have like one-on-ones and like the whole like scene with the gem and everything.
I think it's
Just,
the DM in me, it's the
yeah.
actor in me, and it's the writer-storyteller in me. All three just in a big bowl of mashed potatoes.
Well, kudos to you. It was really fun to to have you along these 3 episodes. Like,
And I
that's
had a
great.
blast. You
Yeah.
were all a great party to guest for.
I might honestly just wrap up there. If anyone has anything else specifically they would like to talk about for 25, let me know.
Did we want Denny to talk about the dungeon at all? Like,
Yeah,
the
tell us
Yeah, I
about
think
the
like that.
dungeon.
Like, I know Anthony wanted to talk about like mechanic stuff with you as well, Denny. So we can do it now, but we can also save it.
I just
Up
have
to you.
one quick thing I want to say, and then that's
Sure.
about it. For like the whole like quote unquote Nell fucking up in the dungeon bit, I think I fucking oh god, in the moment I did not communicate this well, but like I think with that little conversation that Gideon had with Nell, he wanted to establish that it was like it's cool to fuck around, but when business is business, it's business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like literally when we're outside the dungeon, go fucking nuts. But like in the dungeon, it's not the time. You know?
Yeah, I had more to say there, but we got moved on, obviously, because it was like fucking hour 6. So we could probably like reprise that conversation because I had like a response to it, but it'll just have to come up like
Yeah, we
in-game again.
rechecked it in game.
Yeah, but yeah, there's opinions that Mel has. About
Oh,
that,
there's a lot to unpack there on both sides,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, we Gideon started unpacking his side of it, but then we got interrupted. So yeah.
Yeah, and did you want to talk about the dungeon, or did you want to save it for?
You know, I will save it for our Tuesday session, and whoever shows up to that, you can hear about that then, or you can just watch the video.
Either way.
Yes.
Cool. I am going to do one fun question while we have Jesse here.
Oh,
Fun
dear.
question thing. I don't think I used either of these yet, hopefully. And if I did, I apologize because I have no memory. I feel like I might have just like said this to Denny at some point and not in an after party, I hope. But basically, for like all of us our players, obviously, I want to know like what the moment that like hooked you into D&D was. So either from playing or from like for my sake, for me it was because I watched a bunch of Critical Role before I really started playing. And so what hooked me on it was there's a scene in like the first campaign where Travis's character goes to slam like a skull that has like a cursed soul trapped inside of it, and he rolls a nat 1 so it doesn't smash open. I think that moment of just seeing like the multiple like timelines like break off of like what could have happened if the roll had been different was like it hooked me. I was like, oh my god, so much hinges on this one thing. And like now as a player, that's like such the thing of like seeing like how things could have gone. Yeah, we can go around the circle. Dallas.
Interesting question. Yeah, because I started playing D&D like 10 years ago. And we played, you know, like 4E originally, and I don't really remember much about like the first couple sessions we did with that. You know, it was always just like a chill thing to do with my friends. But I think one of the first things I can remember being like, oh, I feel this moment is actually not a great moment, and Matt might not like me telling this story. But I remember I was playing a monk who like believed she like was from like a monastery of monks who all like worship some like greater god, and actually very similar to Nell, where like everyone else spoke to God, but my monk never did, and she was always just like, I speak to my god also. And I don't remember like what it was that made Matt cast Detect Thoughts on me, but at some point in the game he did cast Detect Thoughts, and he did the like probing deeper thing, so he learned like my greatest like secrets, and I knew that he did it. And the pure rage and betrayal I felt as a character and myself, to this day, I can't take that spell because I am so mad about that moment. But I do remember also being like, I didn't know a game could make me feel so many things. And so a great moment, truly traumatizing. I hate that spell so much, and it's a great useful spell that I can never touch in my life because I just have so much rage around it. But
That is amazing.
That's incredible.
so mad. I'm still so mad.
I love that. Poor Matt also.
Sorry. I love you, Matt. But you did fuck up. He knows. We've talked this through.
I know.
He knows what he did.
you brought this up when we were like all out for like dinner the one night too. I was just like, whoa, I had no idea.
Like 8 years ago, I'm still angry about it.
So good.
Incredible. Jesse, do you have a moment?
Yeah. Okay. Quick context. So just go with me here. Had always played RPG video games, board games, things like that. Had never played D&D. Had seen it before. Had friends that had played it. Always wanted to. Never found the right group. So I'm sitting in the change room at my old job when I was shooting for YTV, and my director Drew, who is now my DM and writing partner, we were shooting the shit. We were playing Mario RPG or something because someone had brought in their Switch or whatever. And I said, oh, RPGs, love RPGs. Never played D&D though. And he says, I've been trying to set up a group. And I was like, sign me the fuck up, boy. And we are still playing in that game. He started that campaign a week before his daughter was born, and his daughter's almost 5. So he had 2 kids in the same month, I always joke. So yeah, right, the campaign and then his actual biological child. So I remember the first ever episode session we were playing, and I was thinking of it very video gamey because I had loved Elder Scrolls. I had played Morrowind and Oblivion and Skyrim and all that stuff, and we're just in this tiny level 1 dungeon where we had been sent to clear out some goblins because we're level 1 and that's what you do. And it was a long hallway filled with quicksand, and we had to get across the quicksand. And meanwhile, there were, I had the name and now I'm blanking on it. Denny, help me. It's those sturges, maybe? It's like the bat
giant
mosquito
mosquitoes?
things.
Yeah.
So they're flitting around, trying to attack us as we're trying to get across the quicksand. And I remember looking through my character sheet being like, I don't have abilities. I'm level 1. I don't know what to do. And then I was just like, can I try something weird? And he was like, yeah, try something weird. So I'm like pole vaulting across the quicksand with my great axe. And I thought, wow, I didn't realize I could do that, because in a video game, you can't do that. When you have a weapon, all you can do is hit the thing in front of you. And that's when I realized, oh, this is a game where if I can justify it, I can justify it and do anything. And then half the group died to the Sturges, and but I'm still playing that same character to this day.
Buckle those losers, right? Because they
Yeah,
didn't
fuck
think
them.
to use their
Half
axe
of them
to
were
pole vault,
NPCs,
so-
whatever. The rest quit. Who
Yeah.
cares?
Beautiful. Ryan.
So like, I think it was like the second or like third session that I played that really hooked me into the game, and then sort of I understood it on a level that I'd be like, oh, this is just amazing creative expression. Because like the first session I played was a one-shot that was a homebrewed Tomb of Horrors-esque meat grinder, which I wouldn't recommend for new players, but you know what? I was eager. But here we are. Everybody died, except for me in the dungeon. I left the dungeon and died of poison. It was great. So it went.
That could have happened to you this one too. It would have been like full circle.
Full circle. Yeah. So after that one shot, I hopped into a campaign with a couple of people that I still talk to, and I played a tiefling evoker fire wizard in 4th edition in a little bit of a campaign, and I was just hooked because I had this really cool moment that like I've never got to do in like any kind of game or anything like that. So basically our party was in possession of the Wand of Wonder, which is a crazy item, and one of the other party members had it, but during the combat what happened was they cast a spell in a pit area where this fight was taking place. I was in the pit, and basically it grew grass, very tall grass throughout the whole pit. And tieflings in 4th edition don't work like they do in 5th edition. In 4th edition, they had a base number value of fire damage they would just not take. So then what I did, knowing that, was I set the pit on fire. And basically everyone in the pit but me took fire damage. I was basically the only one in there. And I had this really cool moment of being this devilish figure walking through a flaming field with like thaumaturgy eyes shining through the flames. And I was like, okay, this game's the coolest shit on the planet.
That's so cool.
I was just like, I have to do this for however long I can because this is just the best. So from that moment forward, I was just inspired to try every class and make a bunch of characters that are wildly different. And here we are now, playing one of my more basic characters. And I'm
Denny,
very,
you gotta give him the
very
Wand
happy
of
about
Wonder.
it.
Give him the Wand of Wonder.
Yeah, because I've played some really eccentric people. So, yeah, that was that though.
I like that. You just describing that, I could see it in my mind so well. I was like, ooh, yeah. Awesome. All right, Adam.
Mine was actually probably the first time I played a real session. It was a one-shot. There was a comic book store near where I lived, and they did a March break camp. And my birthday is right around March break, so I did that camp a couple times, I think. But the first time I did, so I was like 8. And the one shot was I think there were maybe 10 players. And I mean, I'm a quiet adult. I was a very quiet kid. But we went around and we rolled the D20, and everybody got to pick their character based on what they rolled. And I was like middle of the pack, and nobody had picked the human barbarian. So I picked the human barbarian, and you got this miniature, and he had a horned hat and the, very Conan loincloth, all that kind of stuff.
Adam, my current character is still a human barbarian.
It's great. I
always will have a heart for that.
Yeah, humans are great. Most of the time. Anyway, but just like having the miniature, and then it was that kind of classic, like this comic book store had the tiles and all this thing, and the story, I don't remember much of it, but we had been like kidnapped by a dark wizard, and the climactic fight was a zombie T-Rex, and they had this big honking miniature for it and everything, and it was just so evocative for my little 8-year-old brain. Yeah, it was just like, I didn't play another session of Dungeons and Dragons for probably 8 years after that, like almost a decade, but it had always been one of those things that was on the periphery of my mind, of being like, that was a really cool experience, and I enjoyed it so much. Yeah, really a lifelong hobby.
So cool. I wish I went to freaking D&D March break
Me
camp as a
too.
kid. I'm imagining myself that same story, but it's like a big dragon mini. I would just like lost my mind. Cool. All right, Danny, what you got?
Well, I started playing D&D during 4th edition in high school, probably about 2009 or 2010. And I don't think I really got into it until 2016. No, just kidding. But honestly, like kind of leading into D&D, like when I was in elementary school, I think grade 5, like our teacher had like a bunch of like, those choose your own adventure books. So like start reading it. It's like, make a choice, flip to this page or that page to find out where this sends you. And being the little shit I was like, well, I want to know where both is, and I want to find the good one.
Yeah.
So I just go to one, be like, well, that sucked. Go to the other one, and be like, all right, this keeps the story going. And then I eventually started playing Knights of the Old Republic, which is a Star Wars video game. And I was like, oh, this game is superb. I didn't think I'd like this. We bought it thinking it was Battlefront and just got it wrong. And then I was like, no, there's something very interesting about how this game works. And I really like it, like making choices and seeing how a story can be impacted really by your choices. And then in high school, some friends invited me to play D&D. I was like, okay, I'm going to make a changeling warlock. I have no idea what it means. Just seems pretty cool. We started playing, and the DM we had just made the most acid trip of a story. Like, I've told this story a few times on the channel here, where it's like, we ended up in like a field of daisies. That was kind of like the Wizard of Oz. We started feeling sleepy. Navi the fairy showed up. Our Dragonborn barbarian ate it. It continued to communicate with us through his stomach. We fought the logos for Internet Explorer and Firefox. And then we hopped aboard a spaceship, skinned the captain of the spaceship, and took off into space. And that's where we ended the session. And I was like, okay, that was something. And I think I can do it differently. And that was kind of what kickstarted me as a DM. But I think to me at the time, it was a bit more of just that, like, 4th edition being what it was. I was just like, yeah, I get together with some friends, we eat pizza, there's cutouts and battle maps, so we play this game. I didn't really think of D&D as D&D until 5th edition came out. Like, when it was just like, oh yeah, no, there's role play that's encouraged, there's like character depth. So it probably after 5 years of playing, I was like, oh no, this is superb. Even first year of university, I ran like a one-shot for, I think, close to 10 people in our dormitory just because
Wow.
they'd never played before. And I was
You're
like,
insane.
I have done this several times. I've run large, huge groups, and people seem to stick with it despite, being hours long and having 10 people at the table, and you shouldn't do that.
No.
Like, very
yeah.
famously, we did that for our friends, like bachelorette party. It was like so many of us, and it was like 5 hours.
I think it was the largest group I've ever done. What was it, 11 people?
Something like that. Yeah, it was a hefty group.
I can
Yeah.
barely do 6.
A
My
few
God.
first timers amongst them, and yeah. So and I just mean, I think I kept reconnecting with D&D over the years. There was that initial phase, influences from those earlier games, getting the phase where I began to just introduce people to the game, 4th edition and 5th edition, where I was just like, I'm rediscovering it, like this is so much fun to share. And then like when Critical Role, I found that, I was like, this is the techniques I'm absorbing, I am going up in my levels as a dungeon master. I felt like it was around that time I started watching that show. I was like, I think I understand what it means to be a good DM. Not that you should, Matt Mercer effect and all, but learn by observing, learn by taking what you feel is important. And yeah, so I think that's my 2 cents on this question.
A quick sidebar since we're reminiscing, Denny. Do you remember the day we met?
Yeah, you and I met at the Princess of Wales Theater.
It was
We were
like
both
day
on,
2 of
what was it?
TIFF.
The 2nd floor, I believe. You were over in the
Yep.
corner dealing with popcorn.
I was cleaning up the popcorn nonsense, and you were watching the foyer, and I don't remember who brought it up, but we started talking about D&D.
Somebody said D&D, and then immediately we were over in the corner, like talking about all the campaigns we played
Yep.
in, like about like games where like, well, the rogue one he mentioned earlier, he'd done like one shots of like all rogues, all clerics, all monks.
I gave him like a play-by-play of everything that Barbarian has done. Denny told me about all the campaigns he had been in. We talked for like the entire freaking shift, man.
Oh yeah, and then I quit.
Because he was like, I'll never find a guy that cool again.
Mood.
Oh my God, I just realized I've been playing for 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah, am I the
Yeah.
one with the least amount of play experience, I'm suddenly realizing? I've only been playing for like 5 years.
I think, like, I technically was part of that first group with Dallas,
Yeah.
but like I didn't really like click for me until I started watching Critical Role, which was 2017. So yeah, I'm like roughly around 5 years as well of actually like playing. Yeah, Denny, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna be really disappointed if we don't like fight like Internet Explorer at some point. So
Yeah, if I may make a request.
Can
Yeah,
the
it's
stranger
like-
in shadow be Internet Explorer?
You
feel like
There it is.
No, wait, wait.
It's actually
Brainerd-
Microsoft
Brainerd-
Edge now.
Brainerd is Firefox.
There you go.
Denny,
It's
it's
all coming
perfect.
together.
The void is Google Chrome.
Fire
Oh fuck! No wait, wouldn't the Void be like Linux? Or wait, no,
Sure.
Opera. What's the weird one? Not
Cap is
Safari? I
Opera.
don't
Come
know.
on now.
Cap
the
is
singer.
Opera GX.
Anywho,
You guys wouldn't be high
I'm-
enough level for Internet Explorer.
You can't
Wow.
defend
It would
the
just-
truth.
it would just be
We're
kind
not
of like
even in the
slow
right
on us.
edition.
And
We
stuff.
would damage it, but it wouldn't take damage till like 6 turns later.
It's got a damage threshold.
Oh my god, yeah, that's
That's got
so
a delay.
It
This would be a
takes
really
damage with
fun
delay.
one-shot idea to do though. So
You make a wisdom save, or
don't
else you
mind.
waste your turn hitting Control Alt Delete forever.
oh my god. Or like it like does that thing, it casts like a version of like mirror image, but it's like to the extreme. Like like when you would take
Windows
like,
Oh, yeah,
like
and, like,
your
freeze
thing
and you
would,
could like do the box.
copy, yeah.
Yeah, this would be a fun fight. I'm just saying, like as like a one shot at some point.
I'm gonna go to D&D Beyond and homebrew it as soon as we're done here.
Oh,
Amazing.
perfect.
Can't wait to
I'm
see
excited.
That. All right. On that note, I am going to wrap up now. So yes, thank you everyone for hanging out as we discussed this really intense 3-episode arc that we had. A lot happened in it, including our longest episode ever. But yeah, it was really fun to discuss everything here, and it was really great to have Jesse with us as we did so. So thank you for joining us for 3 episodes and for the talk back as well. It was really fun to have you and to play across you as well. Okay. For future episodes, if you have any questions about the Play Dicely campaign and you'd like us to answer them, you can send them to me on Twitter at cbkclo, or you can email them to me at cbkclo@gmail.com. And that is all for us for now. And we invite you to join us next time on Play Dicely After Party. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Damn.